12 gods put a single man in chains of light. A purple sigil the size of a town burns under his feet. His face is bloody, he's laughing at them, and he says it straight word for word off the page. "Go ahead, I dare you to seal me away." They answer in unison like a court reading a sentence. "We will look forward to that day." Then they say his name. I'm not saying it yet, that name is the payoff of the first act and it lands the moment the page hands it over. Hold the number because it's the best hook this story has. 66,666 years, that count is not decoration. A memorial stone later carries almost all of it and one man's lifetime covers the gap. We'll do that math on the page together. He doesn't serve the sentence quietly. He finds a dimensional rift and slips out. And the most feared Dark Mage doesn't return as an army. He returns as a baby with mint green hair in a noble crib with rich parents crying over him. The caption gives him a new name, Jamie Welton. He's 9 years old now and his small hand crackles with black energy. He puts on a hood and a dark aura spreads over a whole city. A child's palm swats a rank 6 fire spell called the Phoenix Wraith out of the air. Nobody up there has noticed a thing. So here's the question we're chasing for 3 hours. Can he rebuild enough power to kill a god before the 12 find out the reincarnation exists? Every block gives you one hard fact toward that answer. Tell me in the comments which of them should fall first. So we start where the story actually starts. A 9-year-old wakes up in a canopy bed at the Welton estate and the first thing he thinks is, it's that dream again. Not a vague nightmare he can't place. The same one on a loop. He's the only person alive who was in the room when it happened. The caption introduces him in his own words. "My name is Jamie Welton. I am the firstborn son and heir to the Earl household of the Kingdom of Seldom." That's your first hard fact and it's the whole trick of this series in one line. The most feared thing in the world is now a legal minor with an inheritance. Then a whole morning of domestic routine and we're skipping most of it because only the contrast matters. "Good morning, Nanny," says the thing that once made 12 gods hold a meeting. He eats what he's fed. He lets his little sister Sarah Welton spoon food at his face and privately he finds all of it exhausting. His parents get proper name cards here so this is on the page. Earl Argano Welton, head of the household and one of only 5 swordmasters in the entire kingdom. Sears Bell Welton, sole daughter of the great Bell household, 2 people who adore a son who does not exist. That's the engine of this whole thing. Alone, he opens his hand and black energy crawls across his palm. The foolish 12 gods are still up there, so are the followers feeding off them. And his own power right now is, his word, damnably weak. That gap is the show, everything from here is him closing it. Family reading hour. His mother reads a children's book about Heinz the Great Mage and the boy says he'd like to be a great mage like Heinz someday. She laughs and tells him he's already defeated 3 mage teachers by now. Defeated, word for word off the page. 3 tutors walked in, 3 tutors lost. On his way to the library he stops cold. There's an old man in white and gold standing inside the house uninvited and the mana pouring off him moves like a tornado. The boy doesn't run and doesn't shout for a guard. He asks the question a nobleman's son asks. "Who are you? How did you get in here? It is private property." The old man looks at him and thinks, a 9-year-old with this much mana? Then he says, "Show me how strong you are," and he throws a spell at a child in that child's own hallway. Rude. Also the single smartest move anyone makes in these 2 episodes because it's the only way to measure what's really in there. And here's the payoff the opening was holding back. The boy answers with a magic circle wider than the room and the page finally hands you the name. How dare he try to test me? Me, Diablo Volpir, whom even the gods once feared, that is who has been living in the nursery. Episode 2 picks up mid-clash and the result matters more than the fight does. The counter doesn't leave a scratch on the old man, what it does is stun him. "Amazing," he says, a 9-year-old casting such a powerful spell. Then he winds up for a second one because he still hasn't got his number. That's when the father arrives. Earl Argano Welton cuts an incoming spell in half with one sword stroke and asks his son if he's alright. Hold onto that image, we're going to need it much later. Then he turns to the intruder with the flattest line in the episode. "Marquess Rinmal, I think you have some explaining to do." The name card lands right after. Rank 8 Great Mage Marquess Rinmal, renowned as the most powerful mage in the entire world. And he's standing there because the father invited him. So what does that tell you? Dad quietly asked the strongest mage alive to look at his son, and the ambush was the interview. Then comes the line that sets the ruler for the next 3 hours. Rinmal turns the job down, not for lack of talent, and he says so. His words are, "I cannot handle him." The boy read a harmless test spell and never flinched. At 9, with nobody teaching him, he measures rank 3 and by raw ability at least rank 4. Rinmal calls him a phenomenon who doesn't need a teacher and floats the idea that he could become a legendary rank 9. Hold onto that scale, we'll use it constantly. Rank 8 is the ceiling of the living world. Rank 9 is a story people tell each other. What's inside the boy used to stand above both, and nobody up there has noticed. That night his mother holds him for hours over the awful old man who frightened her baby and swears she'll teach that geezer a lesson. He lets her. Meanwhile he's replaying the sword, quietly amazed that a swordsman erased a great mage spell that cleanly. The Dark Mage who terrified gods is taking notes on his own dad. Then Rinmal teleports straight into the bedroom, which nobody in this house treats as a problem. He hands over a spellbook of his own mana breathing technique. He calls the boy's current method really outdated and says Jamie is the first person he has ever shared it with. It's the teaching he refused to do, compressed into one object. Outdated stings? I am Diablo Volpir, he tells himself, then promises to consume every bit of knowledge in that book. The technique needs a partner to break the mana down, so he snaps his fingers. A round black familiar with one yellow eye pops into the air. This is Black, tied to him by a spiritual contract. And then the breakthrough that powers everything after this. Everyone stores mana in the heart, so everyone hits the same wall. He stores it across his whole body instead, and the wall stops existing. Nothing can stop me, he says, flat on his back, 9 years old, in a house where they're worried he skipped dessert. Here's our verdict on the opening. The strongest mage alive spent 10 minutes with him and left saying he couldn't handle him. So how much of the old monster is actually still in there? Enough to rattle the ceiling of this world, nowhere near enough for a god. That's the gap we spend the rest of this watching him close. Episode 3 finds him alone on the floor, meditating, pushing his mana until it settles at rank 4. Rank 5 is only about a step away, he says, and that step is going to cost him years. Outside the room his father stops walking. Argano feels power gushing out of a 9-year-old's whole body and thinks, my little boy has that much potential. Then the mage who once fought 12 gods calls his bat over to play. Black lands on his head with a peep and gets an order, turn invisible. Jamie wants to shadow his own father unseen, and he says why in one line off the page. He has no intention of revealing his existence at this point. Hidden, his mana masked, he watches a robed visitor thank the Earl for allowing the faith in Zenith onto Welton land. Jamie clocks the crescent moon symbol on the man's chest. He reads what's leaking off him as dirty vicarial powers, and something goes cold. How dare you attempt to set foot in my land, Zenith? A child is crouched behind a door, declaring war on a god. Then he walks into the drawing room and plays son. Father, it's me, Jamie. Over tea the Earl promises to back his magic studies any way he can. Then Argano spots the invisible thing in the room. Jamie admits he built it himself, and his father doesn't flinch. He hugs the boy and shouts that he's so proud of him. Hold on to exactly what that father just learned, because the whole video runs on it. Argano now knows his son makes living creatures out of magic. He doesn't know about Diablo Volpir. Nobody up there has noticed either. The most dangerous being this world ever buried is getting praised at a tea table, and he notes dryly that this household is overwhelmingly full of love. That night he goes out as the other thing. Black hood, one pale eye burning, dark wings unfolding over the rooftops. He flies out to find whatever Zenith's purpose is in trying to take a place in his land. Down in the Undercity, 2 men from a criminal outfit called Reborn are arguing about orders. Jans and Philip have been told to traffic children inside Earl Argano's territory. They know what that means for them. Earl Argano loves his young children dearly, one says, and that's the sentence that dooms them both. Then the hood is simply there in the alley, glowing. Jans manages, "Who are you?" and the answer is a laugh. "Ha, you are asking me who I am?" He isn't threatening them, he's insulted. Episode 4 answers the question, and it's the first honest look at what he is. Jans swings and hits empty air. Jamie calls them puny grunts, pulls their story out with lightning, then burns a glowing mark into Jans's forehead. Run to the Earl household at once and reveal every detail of the plan. Jans obeys like he's reading his own thoughts aloud. He almost gets out clean, then somebody else hits the alley and both Rebal men end up wrecked on the ground. The man cackling over them is a sub-executive named Hanny. Silver hair, stitched scars crossed over his face, a rank 3 fire mage. He wants the bastard in black robes dragged over so he can kill them again. Jamie's reaction is territorial. Somebody touched his underlings. Hanny plays his best card, a spell he names out loud, rank 3 explosion spell, burst. Jamie turns it around and the fire lands on one of Hanny's own men instead. Then he explains the joke to the man who threw it. I asked if it was fun to kill one of your own underlings. He files Hanny away as a mere rank 3 mage. So what does a sealed god killer do with a small-time arsonist? Not a fight, a demonstration. He takes Hanny's mind apart from the inside while narrating his own hobby. I love toying with the brain of someone weaker than I am. The survivors run screaming that he's a monster and they don't get far. Hanny ends the night blank-eyed, calling him master. Episode 5 is the payoff of this whole arc, and it's the best stretch in the opening. It opens on Hanny again, propped up and questioned, and he's useless now. Jamie says it himself. He toyed with the man's mind only a little, yet his soul is completely crushed, so he drains what's left, soul and mana together, and thanks him for the meal. That leaves the other two. He force-saved Jans and Philip by feeding them mana, and it isn't holding. They won't last long like this, he says. For anybody else that's a crisis. For him, it's a shopping list. He needs eyes in rooms a Welton child can't enter and 2 bodies that know heist by its back doors. So we get necromancy on screen for the first time in the series. Black tears open into something demonic beside him, a pillar of purple goes up and he screams for filthy sinners to come forth. Then the words, conjuration of the undead. Dead yet still living, forfeit your lives and rise. This is the spell class 12 gods sealed him for, cast in an alley on 2 nobodies. They come back wearing the faces they died with. Same voices, same memories, no exit. He tells them what they are for. They'll gather information on the faith in Zenith, and they'll get inside places like the Temple of Zenith. He built his first spy network out of the men who were going to move children through his father's county. Then one of them slips. Philip, the one with the long lavender hair, lets something rebellious cross his eyes and he's on the ground for it. There will not be another chance, Jamie tells him. One more look like that and he will cease to exist altogether. Philip stops shaking only when he's allowed to. Here's where the horror lands properly. He explains that a submission of soul contract now owns them. Their souls belong to him even if it is against their will, and that is the nature of dark magic, word for word off the page. He isn't gloating while he says it, he's filing paperwork. Then he turns the question on the 2 of them, the one the audience has been carrying since episode 1. Do I look like the Demon King or something in your eyes? Jamie smiles and gives the line the entire recap is built on. He is not the Demon King. He is a dark mage that once attempted to slay the gods and still exists to bring them down. Present tense, still exists. Episode 6 is housekeeping, so we're skipping the chore list and the family comedy. 2 things in it matter. The first is a name. Alone, furious that a god is obstructing his life in his own land, he says it out loud. Zenith, my worst nemesis. A crescent and cross emblem burns in the dark behind him. One of the 12 marked as his personal nemesis on the page in episode 6. His answer is a promise. No matter how many followers Zenith sends onto his land, he'll kick every one of them out. The second thing is quieter. On the street he knocks over a boy in a red neck scarf who calls him a punky kid with nasty black hair. Remember that scarf. Episode 7 is track-laying, so here's the compressed version. His servants have a Reborn member named Pep stashed in a cellar, and Jamie brands him into a whistleblower. Pep walks into the Welton household and hands over the gang. He also tells Jans and Philip what they are now, still zombies, just with the same outward appearance as before death. Meanwhile, his mother announces a ball co-hosted by Earl Simon and Earl Welton for the nobles of Eastern Seldom. Reborn collapsing overnight keeps his father home to finish the job. So the boy sets off for Reezen, the biggest city of commerce in the eastern region, with only his mother and Sarah. He gift-wrapped a criminal empire for his father and used it as a travel plan. In the carriage he reads history and slips again. He starts turning over the foolish 12 gods and how the war on them will be a walk in the park. Then he catches himself and refocuses on the party. That's this whole section compressed into 1 page. He's named his first target and he can't hold the thought for a full carriage ride. So that's where episode 7 leaves him. He knows which god goes first and Zenith has no idea he's breathing. But he's 9, his body can't carry the power he's already rebuilt, and his standing army is 2 dead thugs and a bat. Where exactly do you start hunting something that lives above the sky? Reezen is the largest city of commerce in the kingdom, and the Welton carriage rolls in at dusk. His mother says it feeds more coin into Seldom than anywhere else. Jamie throws the door open and gawks exactly like a 9-year-old should. That's the trick of this arc. The boy performs the age while the thing inside him counts the exits. Their host is Earl Simon, Lord of Reezen, and the page hands him a number right away. Rank 7 Great Mage, reached at roughly the age Jamie's father is now. They call him the Red Lotus Mage because his magic blooms open like a red flower, and the rumor attached to it is thousands of lives. His mother gushes the whole ride and kisses her son about it. A being who dueled gods arrives at the party with lipstick on his cheek. An administrator named Rayol Van Hare opens the ball. Simon sweeps in, red hair catching the light, and the room whispers that he might match Marquess Rinmal. Then he looks the boy over from head to toe. So what does a rank 7 see when he stares at a 9-year-old? Not enough. Episode 9 is mostly errands, so we're taking it at speed. Jamie ditches the party for the garden and gets ambushed by wind magic. He deflects it and answers with a rank 2 spell called Air Bullet aimed at whoever's hiding. It turns out to be a girl his own age. Ash Ballet, second daughter of the Ballet household, an elementalist bonded to a wind spirit. She cries and asks to be friends. He tells her to find someone else because he doesn't make friends, then walks off while she wails at his back. The episode cuts to Heis, where his father has the head of a trafficking ring on his knees and orders him hanged in the morning. That's Jamie's plan from episodes 4 to 7 landing. Nobody connects the hooded mage to the boy in the garden. One more shot before the end card. A cloaked figure elsewhere holds a cracked blue orb and gets word that Rebal has failed. The order that comes back is 6 words: get ready for the alternate plan. So the crew Jamie dismantled was a limb, not a body, and whatever it hung from is still breathing. Episode 10 introduces the rival, and he introduces himself badly. A red-haired boy blocks Jamie's path with 2 hangers-on, and one of them announces the resume out loud. A rank 3 mage to be, eldest son of Earl Simon, heir to the household, Lord Alf. Jamie's read takes a second, already a rank 2 and nothing above it. Then Jamie does my favorite small thing in this arc. The attendants keep talking, so he snaps his fingers and drops silence on both of them mid-sentence. No chant, no gesture, no warning. Alf watches 2 mouths stop working and can't explain what he just saw. A 9-year-old muted 2 people at a garden party without breaking eye contact. Alf offers an alliance between the 2 biggest houses in the region. Jamie's answer is short enough to fit on a coin. No, get lost. He isn't going to play the game, and he says so out loud, which is where this boy's pride hands us 4 episodes of plot. So Alf pulls out a pearl, an artifact of illusion, and seals them off from every eye on the estate. Who removes the witnesses before a fight? A 9-year-old, apparently. All 3 of them attack with wind magic. Jamie brushes it aside and answers with a curse called Affliction, black and purple tendrils that put every one of them on the ground. It's ugly, and the page doesn't blink. What Alf takes from it is the arithmetic. He works out that Jamie is a rank 4 while he's only a rank 2, and he can't square it because the Weltons are a sword clan. He staggers home swearing he'll crush that gift. Empty words from a bleeding kid, and they still nearly kill 3 people. Episode 11 opens on the follow-through. Alf talks a friend into stealing magical equipment, and then his younger brother Lennon turns up holding something worse. Lennon hands over a dangerous item and waves off the risk. What matters, he says, is that Alf can settle the score with the Welton kid. Watch how helpful he's being. That night, Jamie's father arrives and Earl Simon greets him at the door himself. Over drinks, Simon compliments him for asking the great mage to teach the boy, and Argano admits the Marquess turned him down anyway. Then Simon says the quiet part. He thinks Jamie will one day become a rank 9 mage, the kind that only exists in legends. We're compressing the rest of that conversation, but one item in it matters. Simon talks about humans being the weakest race on the board next to dragons and high elves. Then he brings up a forgotten history. Roughly 10,000 years ago something happened, and everything before it was wiped out of human memory. File that away on its own shelf. The next day there's another ball, and Ash attaches herself to Jamie until her older sister peels her off. The name card reads eldest daughter to the Ballet household, Rebecca Ballet. Jamie looks at her and the floor goes out from under him. He says one word out loud: Jane. Jane was the love of Diablo Volpir's life, and the gods took her because of him. That's the wound that made him what he is, and it's the only personal one in the entire cut. He spent 11 episodes 10 steps ahead of everyone. One girl in a green dress and he's a beat behind. What does a man who came back purely for revenge do with that? Alf answers for him, walking up with the stolen artifact and promising Jamie will pay. Episode 12 is where the ballroom finds out, and it opens petty and human. Jamie calls Rebecca by the wrong name, Jane, and she just says pardon. Ash teases him about falling for her sister. 4 pages later he's shielding her little sister with his body while a rank 6 fire spell comes at them. Because Alf triggers the artifact, and what comes out is Phoenix Wraith. That's a rank 6 fire spell Earl Simon created himself, bottled inside an object a child could pocket. Alf screams that he'll bring Jamie down to his knees. He has no idea what he's holding. Jamie shields Ash and then he does the thing. A dark aura opens around him and the spell dies in the air, not blocked, not dodged, cancelled. In front of the assembled nobility of the East, a 9-year-old erases his host's signature magic. Alf's own thought is that a puny geek shouldn't undo his father's spell. Then the artifact turns on the boy holding it. The page floods purple and prints one word across the blast: die, and here's the beat that tells you who Jamie is now. His eyes change, he steps in and he eats the backlash to keep Alf alive. His father ends the scene with 2 words: that's enough. The aftermath is pure aristocracy. Alf's mother, Lady Simon, accuses the Weltons of attacking her son. Sears Belle Welton never raises her voice. She states coldly that Alf attacked first with the spell stored in that artifact. That's Jamie's mother defending a 9-year-old she thinks needs defending, with no idea she's covering for the most dangerous being alive. Meanwhile, Earl Simon is doing math, and this is the hard fact of the episode. At full strength, that spell would have incinerated the entire ballroom. The boy cancelled it instantly. Simon's private verdict is 3 words that reframe the show: potential rank 9. The strongest mage in the room just called that child a once-in-a-century talent, and he isn't close. Simon apologizes publicly to Lady Welton, the families withdraw, and the real scene happens behind a closed door. He interrogates his own son until Alf gives up where the artifact came from. Lennon strolls in beaming, calling out that he's here, father. His excuse is that he hated watching his brother lose to a brat. Earl Simon doesn't buy a syllable of it. He tells Lennon the actual motive, which was never about protecting anybody. Lennon wanted a leash on his own brother. 2 houses spent that night arguing about magic. The only real predator in the room was the boy in the lace collar. Episode 13 opens with Simon finishing the job. He tells both sons they're the least of his concerns, that they don't carry the talent he wants in his children. Prove that my blood runs in your veins, he says. Then go apologize until the Welton boy forgives you. Left alone, Lennon clenches a fist and swears he'll prove it, which is not the same sentence at all. Notice what this family runs on. Simon grades his own children by rank, and now both boys are hunting a 9-year-old for approval. It's the first mirror the story holds up to Jamie, and it's the reason these 2 keep coming back. Back at the Welton estate, his mother can't sleep, and it isn't the scandal keeping her up. It's that the spell her son cast at Alf was really meant to kill. She lies there trying to imagine what a 9-year-old could have lived through to do that. She's the closest anyone in this family gets to the truth, and she gets there by accident in a nightgown. His father talks her down since Earl Simon already apologized and nobody wants a rift among the Eastern houses. Sarah's contribution is that Alf did seem pretty frightened. Jamie wakes up privately agreeing with his parents, admitting he lost control. Then he stands at a mirror and says her name again: Jane. He asks whether her return is fate or a scheme somebody built, and he goes straight to the worst option. Don't tell me the 12 gods are behind this. Then he argues himself out of it, and that argument is the most important line in this section. If they knew about his rebirth, he says, they would not have left him alone like this. That's the loop of the whole video, said by the character, word for word off the page. His entire plan rests on one assumption: nobody up there has noticed. Every quiet year is a year the 12 spend looking elsewhere, and he's betting a second life on it. Somebody is watching him, though just not from that high up. A hooded figure holding a white owl reads a report. Eldest son of the Welton household, 9 years of age, assumed to be at least a rank 4 mage. The verdict on that page is that there will be an upheaval in the magical society. So who writes reports on a 9-year-old? The page never says. Then the episode pays off the ball. Jamie hears odd splashing on the grounds, extends his mana to track it, and finds Rebecca Ballet calling a spirit up by name: Undine. Her own caption introduces her as a water elementalist. And while he stands there frozen, a voice that isn't hers cuts through the scene: Diablo, please do not forget me. His captions handle the rest. He can't believe she's incarnated too, and she didn't recognize him, so she carries no memory of the past life. The page also shows how she died in one image, and I'm not going to describe it. Here's the shape of it. The woman the gods took from him is 10 feet away alive, and she thinks he's the neighbor's kid. Episode 14 explains why the water spirit found her and its tidy construction. A narration card titled Contract with the King Elemental lays it out. That bond isn't a normal spirit pact. It's a contract of souls, 2 lives offered to each other. So the instant Jane's soul reincarnated into Rebecca, the king elemental knew. Rebecca thinks she's the family disappointment. The ballet's contract wins spirits and the one that visited her left without a contract. Then Undine appeared and insisted, saying it was fate. Jamie tells her she was selected and to have confidence in herself. Then he flies off with Black, deciding she's a different person now and that it's probably better this way. Back at the estate, the two brothers arrive to apologize. Alf manages a strangled sorry. Then Black picks up something hidden and goes off like an alarm because there's another artifact in the room. Jamie asks them pleasantly whether both brothers tried to mess with him. The younger one grins and gives his full name. I'm Lennon Simon, and yes, he supplied the artifact. Jamie's private read is that Lennon has far more talent than Alf and he turns that into a blade. He needles the air about how hard he'll have to fight for his position, then asks Lennon whether he agrees. Then he grabs him by the collar. If Lennon was the mastermind, the punishment falls on him. A freezing darkness closes over the boy while a purple circle burns to life under Jamie's feet. Lennon goes down asking what this darkness is, gasping that his body is getting colder. He's a noble kid feeling the edge of magic built to kill gods and he'll never have a name for it. I will forgive you, Jamie tells him, only once. The apology he gets after that is the real one, on his knees, shaking. So here's the channel's verdict on the Reezen arc. It looks like a party episode and it's actually an audit. He showed his ceiling in public, got graded potential rank 9 by a rank 7, and learned the woman he lost is alive and blank. 3 hard facts, every one of them on the page. He came back to kill gods. Now there's a girl across that ballroom who's the reason the revenge ever got personal, and she calls him young master. Somewhere, a stranger with an owl is writing his name down. He's still 9, still rank 4, still invisible to the 12. But the number of people watching the Welton boy just went up. Episode 15 opens on the least dramatic panel in the arc. Jamie's waiting on the carriage's home and the balloon says, "Finally, I get to go home." That's the whole series in one line. The most feared dark mage who ever lived wants his own bed. Then Earl Simon walks over. Watch who speaks first here because a lot of people get this backwards. It's Jamie. By the way, was his name Lennon? I taught him a small lesson. Then sweetly, you're not angry that I did that to your son? Earl Simon doesn't blink. Why would I be angry? He simply is facing the consequences of his actions. Then it turns cruel in a quieter way. Jamie asks whether he'll train Lennon himself. No, I know of his potential better than anyone else. It is simply not enough. So the 9-year-old corrects him. Alf may be mediocre at best, but Lennon has great potential. I like that beat, and not for the flex. He's teaching a rank 7 noble how to raise sons. A being who spent longer alone than these bloodlines have existed keeps walking into other people's houses and fixing them. It's the closest thing to warmth he has left. That night the hood goes on. Black flaps beside him in the woods while his 2 undead servants report, and the report isn't what he wanted. The faith in Zenith has taken heis. Food, shelter, charity, a brand new orphanage, and the caption is word for word off the page. Earl Welton obliterated the criminal gang Reborn about 2 months ago. That's the vacuum? His father cleaned out the traffickers and the church walked straight into the hole they left. Jamie doesn't buy one loaf of it. Any piece a god hands out, he says, is established on top of blood and destruction. He orders his servants to find out what the order is really planning. Then the episode does something sneaky. It cuts to the people he's about to reduce to a conspiracy. Ricky, brown hair and a red bandana, sweeping the orphanage yard. His little sister Anna is blind and their parents left them over it. A young priest of Zenith took them both off the street. Then the other kids burst in. A boy named Shino was chosen by God and he's leaving for the Order's headquarters to become a priest. Ricky just stares, hold onto that name, and notice the priest meant every word of his own story. That's what will make this arc hurt. Episode 16 opens with the best image in the block. A huge winged shape crosses a sleeping city at night and the balloon is completely casual. We're almost here, take me down. Then a small peep, those are Black's wings. The bat familiar can carry his master now and neither of them thinks it's worth mentioning. He lands next to a blonde stranger face down in the street. He reads a vicarial aura on him, priest or paladin, and works it through with no drama at all. Should I kill him? He decides murder is too much of an annoyance tonight. The stranger lurches up, grabs his collar and drops again. He'd fainted from hunger. That's the dry joke this series keeps making. The man who terrified gods spends a night deciding not to kill someone who skipped lunch. Jamie even demands he reveal who he is. The guy passes out before answering. Next scene, the same blonde is at the Welton dinner table, thanking the Earl for the guards who carried him in. Then he says the line that reorganizes the show. I serve Pei-Ro, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment. That's the second of the 12 to get a name spoken on the page. Zenith was the first. Then Sears mentions where she's from and his face changes. Are you from Apton, my lady? I am from the Bell household. She asks if he happens to know a Bishop Sephira, and afterward he does something a paladin is only supposed to do for a bishop or higher. He goes to the floor in front of Jamie's mother. Jamie has no idea what he's looking at. A servant of a god just knelt to the woman who tucks him in. He makes the vow anyway, silently under a burning emblem of gold scales and a white rose. Pei-Ro is a goddess he must destroy in the end. He's 9 at his own dinner table. Then he plays innocent to keep the adults talking, his most reliable weapon in the whole series. Pressed on why he came this far east, the paladin admits he's hunting an outlawed chimera maker. Chimeras get fused together out of many creatures. Makers are hated because they use people as ingredients. This one has killed more than 10 of Pei-Ro's priests. And here's the hard fact: the next 80 episodes hang on. This maker can build chimeras that wield divine power. Read that twice. Somebody worked out how to pour a god's power into a manufactured body. Jamie's father offers his sword to the hunt as a renowned swordmaster. But the episode saves its knife for last. Jamie asks his mother why the paladin knelt to her. She answers plainly. The Bell household has quietly funded the Order of the Faith in Pei-Ro since her own grandfather's day. His mother's family has been keeping one of the 12 gods in business for generations. Sit with that, he came back to erase 12 gods. He got reborn into the one household that helps pay for one of them, not an enemy house. His mother's house. That's the kind of irony this series builds instead of jokes, and it's on the page, not in my head. Episode 17 opens with a slab of family history, and we're compressing it because only the ending matters. Sears' grandfather helped the Order of Pei-Ro recover a stolen holy item after followers of the Demon King failed a summoning with it. He died denying he was involved. The order named him an honorary archbishop anyway, and swore to serve the Bell household for 100 years. That's the debt, and that's why a paladin hit the floor at dinner. Jamie's answer to a century of family honor is one sentence. I will make use of every single advantage I can until I bring you to your demise, Pei-Ro. Then he drinks his mother's tea and the scene stays warm. This book is very good at that. Meanwhile, Shino gets his send-off. His village calls him chosen by Father Zenith. Ricky and Anna shout that they'll be waiting for him there. He leaves with a hooded escort, and the escort doesn't take him toward any headquarters. He gets walked down into a basement. I brought him, Bishop. The man who turns around has short black hair and a gold emblem on a navy robe. Remember that emblem? It comes back in 3 episodes holding something awful. He smiles at the boy. I can't wait to find out what kind of a creature an innocent child like you would turn out to be. The caption over Shino's face reads, he will make a very good chimera. So now we know, and Jamie doesn't. The orphanage isn't a cover story for the church. It's a supply line, and the boy the whole village cheered for is the delivery. Back in Heist, Jamie tours Belvart Road with the paladin his father assigned. A brown-haired stranger with a spear points straight at him. You're that black-haired kid from before, Jamie answers flat. No, first time seeing him. Privately, he's annoyed the dye job was wasted. It's Ricky, and a runaway carriage is bearing down on him. Jamie casts area bind, and glowing chains catch the horses mid-charge. Ricky, in tears, Am I still alive? The paladin calls him a prodigy, noting the spell was far stronger than the ones he's traveled with. That's the second adult this month to file a report on the Welton boy. At the Heist chapter, an elderly caretaker called Sister thanks the 2 gentlemen. The paladin gives only his job. Jamie gives his full name, and Sister's face does something wrong. She's flustered, and he clocks it. Then she sends Ricky to walk him around alone, splitting him off from the paladin. Separating me and Lars, eh? That's Lars Arithmetic, a humble servant of Pei-Ro, and the end card gag puts him at 29 years old. Jamie doesn't resist the split at all. He just warns Lars not to linger and walks in alone. He wanted to be separated. He wanted it on his terms. Ricky introduces his sister. Anna, meet my new friend. I am Anna. And Jamie's blood goes cold because her body is quietly radiating vicarial power. She carries the gift of sainthood dormant. One day she could see even the invisibles through the eyes of a god. invisible things like a dark mage hiding inside a 9-year-old. So he weighs killing a blind child at that table. It happens in his head in 2 panels and he talks himself out of it. Not for a kind reason either. A high-ranking priest probably knows what she is, so killing her right now wouldn't be wise. That's the man under the mint green hair. Then Ricky mentions the friend who got chosen and left the night before. He says his own dream out loud. To receive the calling and become a priest of Lord God Zenith. Jamie pushes on his past and Ricky admits he used to run errands for Reborn. Human trafficking? Reborn, the calling, watch him assemble it in 3 panels. That was it. I knew you were up to something dirty, Zenith. The church didn't fill the vacuum after his father broke that gang. The church was already the reason the gang had customers and it simply changed departments. Episode 19 puts him in a room with the man from the basement. I see, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Jamie Welton. The bishop is pure courtesy, honored by the visit, sorry he was away. Nobody in that room knows what anybody actually is. Then they leave and Lars stops walking. An armored paladin was standing at the bishop's shoulder and Lars can't place him. The aura is of a vicarial nature, certainly a paladin's but peculiar. He can't name which god it comes from. A paladin who can't read another paladin, that's the alarm. Jamie got there by another road. The Order of Zenith has almost 0 history of voluntary charity work, so why start now and why with children? He thinks the orphanage collects human specimens. Lars takes his sensing to Earl Argano, who says it out loud first. A chimera created from the use of divine power. Lars swears he'll bring back hard evidence. The Earl lends him 3 night knights, the household's secret shadow knights who move like assassins. That's the first time we learn the family has them. Jamie, meanwhile, sends Blackout with a message and primes higher rank spells through his spell sequencer. The stakeout goes wrong fast. The armored paladin comes out of the dark shouting, "Then, die!" and cuts through trained knights with raw vicarial power. Philip is in that group, planted there by his master. He goes down. What he says as he falls is one word: Master. Then the temperature drops. A dark dimension barrier seals the field. The hood, the pale blue hair, one purple eye lit up and a grin that has no business on a child. Well, I am here. Whatever the church cooked up out there just met the thing 12 gods worked together to bury. Episode 20 is the payoff for this whole block, so let's take it slow. First line inside the barrier, our little fight here will raise no alarms now. He admits the rank 6 barrier was a bit overwhelming without Black and the spell sequencer. He's a 9-year-old running at red line. Then he names his weapons one after another and it's the first time the series lets him. Rank 5 gravity flattens the paladin into the ground. Grip of the Dead holds it there with summoned souls. Then Soul Bomb and he detonates the souls he just called up. Think about what that chain says about him. He calls the dead, uses them as restraints, then spends them as explosives. No ceremony, no hesitation. This is a man who engineered a magic system for one job and mercy was never in the spec. Inside that blast he plants something. Dark magic debris buried in the paladin's body while it's busy surviving. Then Marionette. Your body is fully under my control, you cannot resist my will. The thing's inner voice starts reporting like a machine. Physical control surrendered. Adversary is impossible to defeat. It tries to run, then it tries to detonate itself, which tells you what it was built to protect. Not on my watch. Hand of Darkness catches it. The armor comes apart and under the silver blue plate there was never a man. The page calls it the true form of that chimera. He chains it with Area Bind, the same spell that saved Ricky from those horses 2 episodes back, then finishes with Death Bomb. Critically damaged, the chimera triggers a last resort, tears itself free and streaks away across the night sky. And he lets it go. Philip, alive and unimpressed, asks the obvious question, why aren't we chasing it? Because chasing it is amateur work. The debris planted by Hand of Darkness is trackable mana. He didn't win a fight tonight. He clipped a leash onto the enemy's supply chain and let it walk itself home. And it does walk home. The bishop stands holding the wounded core of his own masterpiece and his line measures what he knows. Who would be able to destroy the pinnacle of experiments, the chimera paladin with divine power? Who, not what. He has no concept of a dark mage. This part gets misread constantly, so listen close. The voice worrying about exposure isn't the villain's, it's Philip's. Master, wouldn't that give away that a dark mage has been meddling in their affairs? And his master answers, calm as ever. I understand your concerns, but they will never get to me. Then he names it. The source of my power is the type of dark magic created to slay the gods. God Slayer magic. The page gives it its own card. In this form of magic, the gods are vulnerable and the darkness surrounds the light. That's the biggest information beat since episode 1, and it isn't a power-up. His magic was never just strong magic. It's purpose-built anti-god weaponry, and this era no longer owns the tools to read it. Every priest and paladin in that church runs on vicarial power borrowed from above. Borrowed power can't trace what came before it. His words, off the page, puny grunts that practice vicarial power will never trace the source back to me. That's why he can afford to be this loud. He isn't hiding better than they can search. He's speaking a language nobody alive has heard. So here's the verdict on 15 through 20. This is where revenge stopped being a promise and turned into a method. He's got a name for his weapon, a tracker inside the enemy, and a church that thinks it lost a prototype to bad luck. And nobody up there has noticed. Not the bishop holding the wreckage, not the goddess his mother's family has been funding since her grandfather. He's still 9, still eating dinner with people who think he's adorable. But that mana leads somewhere, and somebody up the chain wanted monsters that could carry a god's power. Episode 21 opens on the servant who took that blade. He's alive. The hooded master patches him up and calls it only a first aid measure, then gives an order that quietly rewrites the cast list. Azard, you take care of Ryza for a while so he recovers. The blonde one we've been calling Jans is Azard. The lavender-haired one we've been calling Philip is Ryza. At home, Jamie takes the wrecked paladin apart and reads it out like a parts list. Fire-resistant organs, insect eyes, a human being used as the base. We're skipping the flashback of his dying comrades because episode 28 runs it again with far more weight. What matters is the call on the communication orb. The Chimera Maker asks for the girl with the saintly power, and the bishop refuses to spend a gift of sainthood on a chimera. A photograph burns while the caption names the target, word for word off the page. A faithful servant of Zenith, and the only blood relative of the saint. That's Ricky. The episode ends with him sweeping the orphanage courtyard, smiling and turning when Anna calls his name. The next episode is the ugliest thing in this stretch, and there isn't a drop of blood in it. The bishop climbs the pulpit and announces that their God has sent another divine message. A child has been chosen again, the way Shino was. The congregation lights up like it's a holiday. Then he says the name and he frames it as a blessing. A lowly orphan gets to become an ingredient of the mighty chimera. The room answers him in unison. Rejoice in faith. Not one person in those pews hears the word ingredient, while the bishop privately notes that these dumb children have no idea what being chosen means. That's the mechanism, and it's why this arc lands. The order isn't kidnapping anybody. It built a supply line where the victims volunteer and the neighbors applaud. How do you fight a crime the victim's own church has already blessed? Cut to a rainy afternoon and a boy drinking tea with his mother. I love the smell of petrichor, and it is even better to spend time with you, mother. That's a mage who terrified gods, meaning every word of it. Then the butler comes in with a visitor, a peasant kid claiming to be a friend. It's Ricky, who cheerfully tells Sears he's from the orphanage the Order of the Faith in Zenith runs. Jamie hushes him before he can explain how they actually met at night. Then Ricky says the thing. He got a calling from Lord Zenith and he leaves in the morning. Lars runs into him on the street and hears the same news, and he does the math alone. The order is deceiving orphans. We go after the carriage. Ricky gets on. I'll show you what true punishment feels like, you scoundrels. 2 rescues are now moving on the same target, and neither side knows the other exists. The episode closes on Jamie in his own bed, 9 years old, in a white nightshirt, one eye burning purple with lightning crawling around him. So, he's on his way. Then, shall I track down the dark mana imbued within? He tagged that paladin's wreckage 2 episodes back. Now the tag has a route. Episode 23 pays off the entire investigation with a caption. A chimera needs 3 things: a victim, a chimera maker, and a high-ranking priest to grant vicarial power, and there's exactly 1 high-ranking priest in this region. The Bishop of Zenith, 1 lore plate, and the conspiracy has a shape you can point at. The Dark Mage rides that trail straight onto the Order's own grounds. He glances over his shoulder and says checkmate before the title card even drops. Downstairs, the bishop has a hand on Ricky's shoulder, the boy locked in place by magic, no ropes and no altar. Come, my child, time for you to face the despair and sufferings. The interruption is pure contempt. I wouldn't exactly call this operation holy, you psychopath. When the priest keeps talking about despair and suffering, he gets corrected. You mean your despair and sufferings? Then the bishop sees what's standing in his ritual room, and his voice does more here than any splash page could. Dark Mage. He calls up Battle Sanctuary, a barrier that turns a priest into a wrecking ball and swings barehanded. Jaime catches the fist and crushes it, and the sanctuary shatters instead. Look around you. The man screams that he's being consumed by darkness. It takes about a page. What follows isn't a kill, it's an acquisition. Time to examine your brain. From that line on, the Bishop of Zenith is a puppet with a hand inside him. Meanwhile, Lars and a masked partner notice one book on a shelf with no dust on it, pull it, and open the wall behind it. Chained in the dark on the other side, a chimera. The interrogation hands us the hardest fact in this section, and it comes from the very top. The message the bishop received from his god was this: create a powerful army regardless of the method. Not a rogue priest, not a black market. A god ordered an army and left the method blank on purpose. Jaime files that away, reinforces the mind control so the man can't speak of his existence, and sends him off to confess to the Earl in person. Then he stops himself. Wait. He turns the spell on his own body instead. His hair goes from cyan to dark, and he smiles. What a splendid idea this is. So the man who walks into the Chimera lab in that navy robe with the gold emblem is Jaime. The Maker's inside contact is called Lincoln, and that's the bishop's name, and Jaime is wearing his face. He hands over the core part and the divine power with a cover story about an intruder he had to finish off. The Maker seats his nucleus, celebrates his best piece of work yet, then looks up with the joy draining out of him. You are not Lincoln. A perfect disguise gets blown because the imposter is too calm and too polite. That's the funniest failure mode this character has, and the page plays it dead straight. Down the corridor, Lars and two knights are losing to something far stronger than anything before it. One of them argues that as knights, nothing gets to hinder the mission, not even a comrade pinned under rubble. Lars refuses that math out loud and goes back for her. Then he stops hiding what he is. I am a servant of Pero, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment, and her divine executor. One word follows: perish. Remember the paladin who knelt to Jaime's mother back in episode 16? He's one of 7 people alive carrying that power, and that number is going to matter far past this basement. 25 and 26 are one fight sliced in half, so we're running them as a single rescue. A lore plate lays out the divine executors of Pero: 7 paladins, enormous divine power, severe drawbacks. His fallen companions get up off the floor. He names the price himself. He absorbs a share of the damage they took. Jaime's half is short and mean. The Chimera Maker screams about interference with his holy experiment, unveils his masterpiece, and watches Jaime pop its magic core like a toy he's been wanting to play with. The man reaches for a warp spell. Jaime cancels it flat. Simple, you are too weak. This is where the bat wings open on the hooded form for the first time, and he promises to haul his prisoner somewhere nice to be taken apart and rebuilt as a loyal servant. The page never lets him keep it. We're skipping most of the corridor chase because the beat that actually changes somebody is upstairs. Ricky wakes up alone in the laboratory, calling out for anybody at all. He finds a tank, and floating inside it is Shino. The memory arrives with the other boy's own question attached. Weren't we chosen by God? That's the pulpit scene from episode 22 coming back to collect, and it costs him everything he believed. He doesn't get to grieve. I am sorry, I promise I'll come back for you. Then the vow aimed straight up. Zenith and the bishop, you won't get away with this. The kid who was proud to be chosen just became the first character in this story who hates a god for a reason he can spell out. Lars buys him a corridor and takes the hit meant for him, then stands back up in gold light. The page never explains because episode 25 already did. They split up. Ricky climbs alone, chasing an aura he swears he felt back in his Reborn days, wondering whether salvation and faith were a lie the entire time. What finds him is the Chimera Maker fused with his own creations, calling him a fly. A hooded shape drops in and catches the blow. So here's the ledger after 6 episodes. An orphanage was a supply line, a bishop became a puppet, and a god signed the order himself. He's still 9, and the 12 still don't know he's back. That hooded shape is him, obviously. And the fight that follows is the best clinic on his method in the whole first 30 episodes. He opens with Dark Dimension, a barrier built to box the thing in. It doesn't hold. The Chimera Maker tears the walls apart, screaming that it isn't enough to keep him contained. Then comes Tentacular Storm. Crimson tentacles flood the page while a zodiac circle burns behind a winged silhouette. Those wings are real, by the way. Since episode 25, the hooded form spreads a pair of dark bat wings and the page never explains where they came from. The tentacles land, they hit nothing. Doppelganger, a rank 4 clone spell named on a glowing diagram word for word off the page. The thing he'd been swinging at was a decoy the entire time. That's the pattern this show keeps running. He doesn't outmuscle people, he gets them to spend everything on a version of him that was never standing there. The real one is already behind him with a curse ready, decaying body plus the taunt that comes with it. Your body will decompose slowly but surely. Then Sphere of Amplification, which triples pain stacked onto a rank 5 gravity spell. He crushes the man from above and the sky goes black. And right here the invincibility cracks. The Chimera Maker had creatures held in reserve and a piercing beam gets through. Jamie's own thought is the hard fact of the block. I've spent too much mana in the previous fight. He's been running on fumes since the Sanctuary, 9 years old, empty tank wide open. Cut to a boy in a red scarf walking a night forest, getting sicker with every step. He wants to turn back. He tells himself he really needs to be there. Ricky has no power, no plan, and no business anywhere near this fight. He walks toward it anyway. The blast charges and Jamie can't dodge. Ricky sees the face under the hood and the thought lands like a brick. Why in the world is Jamie here? Then he's running. No, Jamie! He takes the shot meant for a man who spent 6 episodes treating him as a piece on a board. Episode 27 ends on one word. Ricky, sit with what just happened to the secret. Azard and Reezen knew. A bishop found out and got mind-locked for it. Ricky is the first person outside that circle to connect the boy and the hooded mage, and he did it while bleeding out for him. Episode 28 opens with Ricky apologizing. Sorry, my body moved on its own. That's the entire character in 7 words. Jamie shakes over him and manages one syllable. No, and then the story does something it has never done in 27 episodes. It cuts back to the life before the seal. We're in the ancient world now, and he's the man in the dark purple robe with the gold trim. All around him his people are dying. A blue-haired woman in white and teal. A swordsman in red and white holding a pale mask. None of them get names, and the page refuses to give them any. What they give him instead are 2 lines. Diablo, you must survive at all cost. And from a follower who already knows he's finished, Master Diablo, it was an honor to have learned from you. He was the one being protected. That detail rewrites him. The most feared mage alive had people who chose to burn so he could keep walking. He lost all of them. Then he lost 66,666 years in the dark. And now a 9-year-old orphan in a red scarf has just run the exact same scene in front of him. The story doesn't say that out loud. It just puts the flashback and the bleeding boy on consecutive pages and lets you do the math. The Chimera Maker breaks the silence with the worst possible read of the room. Pathetic creatures caring for each other, quite a scene this is. He promises Ricky will be joining the boy soon. Watch the mistake he's making. He just used a man's oldest wound as a punchline. What answers him is the title of the episode, Army of the Dead, Necromancy. The caption on that page is the most important sentence in this entire block, so here it is word for word off the page. An army created of unnatural causes to stand against the 12 gods. Read that again? This isn't a spell he happens to own. He calls it the very first special power I ever mastered. Think about that order of operations. Before the seal, before the war, before any of it, the first thing he ever learned to do was build a weapon aimed at 12 specific beings. And look at what the army is made of. Skeletal warriors rise out of the souls of everyone this man has killed. Every child fed into a tank, every body he filed as material comes up out of the dirt and walks at him. The Chimera Maker gets exactly one question out. Just who in the world are you? He never gets an answer. What he drops is better than an answer. A glowing green stone called the Gem of Life. It heals whoever carries it. That's why this man kept shrugging off wounds that should have ended him 3 episodes ago. Jamie picks it up. One fewer mystery, one more asset. Then the bill arrives. He coughs blood and states it flatly. The power of unnatural causes has too many drawbacks at the moment. At the moment, he isn't weak, he's early. Every ceiling this series shows you comes labeled as a floor he hasn't finished building yet. Now the part that decides how you feel about this character. Ricky is dying. Jamie doesn't kneel and beg. He starts a summoning ritual calm as paperwork, muttering, "Filthy sinner, come forth." He's going to raise the boy as an undead servant rather than lose him. Is that grief or is that inventory? The ritual never finishes. Gold light detonates over the clearing and a woman steps down out of it. Long wavy hair caught between blonde and pale green, white feathered ornaments on her head and the healed boy resting in her arms. Her first words to him are a property claim. "You attempt to take what is rightfully mine." He knows her instantly. Pei-Ro, goddess of forgiveness and punishment, one of the 12 who put him under, and she looks at this hooded stranger with total blankness and asks, "Have we met before?" There it is, tested in person for the first time. Nobody up there has noticed. Episode 29 opens somewhere else in the rain. Bishop Lincoln is staggering through a storm, wrecked, trying to reach the one man who might listen. "I must tell Earl Welton." A hooded swordsman ends him mid-sentence with 2 words, "How useless." A second figure with pale hair gives the order that reframes the whole arc. "We give up Heiss. Then, begin the process of executing the heretics." The Order of Zenith isn't defending its people, it's amputating them. The Chimera program is being scrubbed from the inside while the body is still warm. Back in the clearing, Jamie's dark magic finishes its work on Ricky and that drags Pei-Ro back as a vision. She's furious. "You knew that, and still tried to turn what is mine to an undead." Jamie's reaction is where the lore drops. "I knew that fool was gifted with vicarial powers but an apostle." The page stops to define the word. The apostle is the closest being to the god they serve. Their existence alone grants status similar to that of the Pope, plus the power to crush all evil as the strongest paladin. That's what Jamie just half converted into a servant, and she confirms it. Ricky is already partially undead. So he starts fishing because he's been dead longer than these people have had a church. Why would a goddess descend in person for one orphan? Why is Zenith's order farming divine power into monsters? He watches her face and calls it. "Bingo, I smell a conflict between the gods." Then he plays the card. He says the name Diablo Volpir out loud to the face of one of the 12. She cracks. "How do you know of his name?" A vision blooms behind them, his old body falling through the air, and she answers her own question. "Volpir, he surely perished." His reply is the most careful sentence in 30 episodes. "I am the one." That carries his will. Not a confession, not a denial. He lets a goddess file him as some devotee of a dead man and she files it. That single line is the load-bearing wall of everything that comes after. The vision is burning out, so she takes the deal. He reaches a bloodied hand toward the light. "I offer an alliance." She tells him to come to Apton and speak with her there. One of the 12 who sealed him is now working with him. She has no idea what she just shook hands with. Ricky wakes up with purple eyes he didn't have yesterday. Jamie tells him straight. "I turned you into an undead with the power of my dark magic." No anger comes back. Ricky decides he's a nice dark mage because he spared Anna, so the kid is Pei-Ro's apostle and Jamie's undead at the same time. The episode closes at the Welton estate. 2 masked knights announce themselves as the arbiters that serve the Order of the Faith in Zenith. Then they calmly confess. They got Bishop Lincoln's confession and executed him forthwith as a heretic. Lars detonates. Preposterous, they're trying to cover this up. Argano doesn't care about heresy. Somebody was killed on his land without his word by men who then walked up his drive to tell him about it. The last panel is his face and one question. Do you all wish to die? We're skipping most of episode 30 because despite that title card, it's a comedy and a cleanup. 2 things survive. The Earl draws once, the Arbiter screams, and the sentence that follows does all the work. It will be the other hand next, followed by your head. Then, colder, "I will not allow the Order of the Faith in Zenith in my land." They pay a huge sum as compensation and abandon the region. Heiss is clean. The other survivor is Jamie at the tea table, hugging his mother and chirping, "Love you so much, mommy," while screaming internally that he is Diablo Volpir, the great Dark Mage. It works. Sears reveals the family trip to Apton is already booked for next week. Alone afterward, the sugar drains out of his face. "I will kill you for all the humiliation, after I am done with you, Pei-Ro." So here's the channel verdict on these 4 episodes. He gained an army, a healing artifact, an apostle who owes him a life, and a goddess in his corner. He also learned he has a ceiling. And the whole thing rests on one sentence: he fed a god. He carries Volpir's will. Pero is certain Volpir died and she'll keep being certain while she walks him straight into Apton. The other 11 haven't glanced this way once, so how long does a lie that good actually hold? The convoy leaves for Apton the following week and we're skipping most of episode 31. The Fear Knights escort their Grandmaster Zack O'Brien announcing himself like a stage act, Ryza whining until he gets handed 300 push-ups. Ricky and Anna ride along escorted to Apton by Lars, two things in their matter. First he opens a portal and shows Azard and Ryza a pocket dimension he built himself. He calls it my warehouse for the undead soldiers and whatever is parked in there keeps absorbing his power. Second, after 2 days draining a green stone he sets a target out loud. I'll be a rank 6 mage in no time at this pace. A target not a rank, his powers are still far behind his prime. 2 days into the mountains, the rain won't stop. Lars our medic rides up beside the window and gets bored on everyone's behalf. Isn't it boring to stay inside the carriage the whole time? Then, I have a story to share if you'd like. Ricky lights up. Anna loves legends too, he says, and she's asleep. The myth belongs to the Mayatrayan mountains they're crossing right now, an evil black dragon and a good-natured blue dragon called Mayatre. Mayatre fell in love with a human mage and the dragon clan sent the black dragon to kill him. That fight split one mountain into many and carved out the rivers. The two of them drove the black dragon off. The mage died anyway. The heavy rain up there never really lets up, so the locals gave it a name. The dragon's tears, she's still grieving him, they say. Watch what the story pulled there. It handed you the terrain as a scar in a moving carriage in a paladin's voice. Jamie's private verdict is one line, it doesn't sound too far-fetched. How often does a legend get told minutes before it walks on page? Lightning splits a tree right then, it lands on the carriage and the whole thing goes off the road. Jamie throws out a lightning wire spell mid-fall, shouting, "I will save both of you," and hauls his mother and Sarah onto solid ground. Then he turns to save himself and nothing comes out. The caption names the problem. A mana burn, an extremely high-rank spell that empties a mage completely. Somebody used it on a 9-year-old in the middle of a storm and the page never shows who. A pair of hands catches him in midair with 3 words. "Who are you?" Then he's in the river. Sears tries to go over after him and a sudden gust stops her, which Ricky sheepishly apologizes for causing. Lars kisses her hand and gives her a deadline. "I will make sure to bring Jamie back." Jamie, meanwhile, wakes in a cave wrapped in blue energy he can't break, facing a barefoot woman with long teal hair. You are awake. Episode 33 names her in the title card, Mayatre. The narration adds the detail that makes the scene work. The blue dragon is the most gentle species out of all dragons. Those are real horns growing out of her skull over pointed ears and ice blue hair. Gentle is doing some heavy lifting in that sentence. Because the gentlest breed alive opens with a question. "Are you a dragon?" He says no. She says his mana-breathing technique looks exactly like one, then tells him plainly why she took him, to kill you. And here's Jamie being Jamie. He calls human mana-breathing garbage next to a dragon's with no idea who's listening. The man who spent his first life hating gods just insulted the human race to the one being alive who gave up her clan for a human. She lists what pulled her out of hiding, a thunderstorm from nowhere. Lightning aimed at one carriage, a strange mana burn. He jokes about getting ground up into Spardoi ingredients, then guesses. "Is this about the human mage that you once loved?" She answers with lightning. Cut to the rain where Lars is still out there searching. "Jamie, where are you?" That's the entire scene. It's the only thread holding the human half of this story up while a dragon in a cave decides what he is. Then she tells it. About 700 years ago she met a dark mage already hunting what he called the hidden truth of this world. The caption gives him a name word for word off the page. His name was Ganon, a dark mage. They explored ruins together and they fell in love. And Jamie nearly drops the act at the next part. He was actually a kind-hearted mage that achieved rank 9 as a human being. Rank 9. By Jamie's own count, humanity hadn't produced a single one in a couple of millennia. Then her line, the whole tragedy in one breath. A dragon, the most powerful of all light mages, fell in love with a dark mage. The dragon lord settled it in a sentence. "Ganon, your very existence defiles life." He commanded the other dragons to hunt him and the sky filled with them. The couple hid in an ancient ruin sealed to admit one person. Her clan exiled her 1,000 years for it, which she waves off. Not a very long time for us dragons. Ganon didn't have that kind of clock. He died and then the clan did the part that reaches straight into our story. They erased him, not the body, the record. Notes, acquaintances, every trace scrubbed on purpose because the truth he chased had to stay buried. The episode ends at a wooden cross on a hill with a dragon standing guard over what's left. Episode 34 is the most valuable episode in this entire recap, so we're slowing all the way down. It opens with Jamie alone with a book running the same comparison you are. His own past has nothing in it, not a single record, let alone hints, no fairy tales or nursery rhymes even. And he names who did it, correcting himself mid-thought on the page. The 12 gods, he starts. No, the Dragon Lord Brahman and his dragon creatures. That caption draws a hard line, so let's keep it straight. Brahman is a dragon lord and this caption names him separately from the 12. There's the answer this show has been sitting on for 33 episodes. He isn't forgotten because time is long. He was deleted by policy by a lord with a name and a clan to enforce it. Somebody decided the strongest human who ever lived would never have existed. He asks to visit the grave to pay homage, being a mage himself. She walks him up the hill and the title card lands there. Shell of absolute immunity. Sitting on the grave beside the cross is a bracelet set with a purple gem, and his reaction is 4 words. That is my bracelet. The narration confirms it. One of 3 divine magical artifacts Diablo Volpir created to aid in the battle against the 12 gods, offering absolute immunity against every disease and curse. He made it. He lost it. It's been decorating a stranger's grave ever since. Then the chain closes on itself. Ganon found this bracelet, traced it back to Diablo Volpir, its creator, and that is what started him hunting the hidden truth. A dead man's lost jewelry got a rank 9 mage killed and a dragon exiled. Jamie leaves it right where it is. I would take it back, but I don't want to die. He pushes her on records. Ganon kept a journal sealed with magic she has never cracked. She gives in when Jamie argues the man would rather his knowledge got used. He breaks the seal himself first try. I got it, and her face changes. What is this dark aura? Even Ganon's dark aura wasn't as ominous as this. She just watched a 9-year-old undo a seal that had beaten a dragon for 7 centuries. She does not forget that. The journal runs by date, Imperial years 22 to 41. A blue dragon called him a detestable being because I am a dark mage. They traveled anyway until the Dragon Lord marked him. He hid in remote mountains he nicknamed the Land of the Demons, then set out for a place called Garmin. He got that name off a memorial stone buried under runes nobody could read, and the journal dates it 65,966 years before Ganon stood in front of it, and Jamie recognizes the writing. It's his. Here's what he carved word for word off the page. I, Diablo Volpir, inscribed this message here to remember the bitter past, and to send hope for the future generations before the final battle. He tells humanity not to be discouraged. He promises to come back, end the 12 gods' reign, and see the human race free and prospering again. Now do the arithmetic with him out loud the way he does it. 65,966 years from the stone to the day Ganon found it, roughly 700 more from Ganon to now. Add them together. 66,666. That is exactly how long they had him. The number in the title isn't a slogan. It's an addition problem the story shows its work on at a grave with the author standing there in a child's body. Look at what that stone is. A letter to people who wouldn't be born for tens of thousands of years, written by someone who knew he was about to lose. One person ever read it and it cost him his life and his name. One piece doesn't fit and he flags it himself. He doesn't remember carving the region name Garmin onto that stone. Someone may have found it and added to it before Ganon did. Garmin is said to no longer exist. He decides there has to be something out there regardless. Mayutre takes the journal harder than he does. It says Ganon loved her. Ganon never told her that himself. She decides he's still alive as long as she remembers him, and Jamie, of all people, hugs her, the most feared mage in history, comforting a dragon at her lover's grave. Then she takes his hand to say goodbye and flinches. That dark aura of yours, would you care to explain to me about it? Are you really just a dark mage? The first person in this era to suspect him isn't a god or a bishop or a knight, it's a dragon who has met a dark mage before. He tries the small answer, just a simple dark magic spell. She won't take it. Give me a break. She's tried dark magic on that seal herself, and she once forced a captured dark mage into an agreement to try it for her. The journal never twitched. Today it opened. So he tells her a story. A long time ago there was a man that went against the 12 gods by himself. His companions either betrayed him or died. He lost, he was imprisoned for eternity, and he still never gave up hope. That's why Jamie says he can't give up either. Look at the move, it's the same trick he ran on Payro back in episode 29, only sharper. He tells her everything and admits nothing, then files himself in beside Ganon and everyone who fought before him. Full autobiography, third person, no name attached. At the cross, she makes her decision. I think Ganon would allow it if it was you, and she holds out the bracelet. This isn't a gift, it's a return. The shell of absolute immunity goes back onto the wrist that made it, and his private thought is the softest line here. It's great to have you on my wrist again. Then the oath, and she flags its weight herself, a promise made by a dragon. I will be by your side to help you, you have my word. He's delighted, she kicks him out through a portal, then stands alone at the grave. Yeah, Ganon, your dreams are still alive. Verdict on this stretch? He went into that river with an empty tank and came out with a divine artifact back on his arm and a dragon on his side. She's also the first person to sign on while openly doubting him. Every other deal here has run on somebody's ignorance. We're skipping the rest of 35 fast. Ricky and Anna cry when he lands. Lars gets thanked and credits the power of the divine executor. The family is fed at Earl Pure's mansion, where Sears is honored as the daughter of the great Bell household. One thing in the back half needs a name. At a magic academy, a lab mouse eats zombie powder and a girl with pink hair takes the blame. Benna, you fool! Two classmates pile on and tell her a lab mouse would be more useful than she is. She cries alone afterward. Hold on to her and to those two classmates. Because that night the hood comes out and the glowing bracelet gets noticed. Those two start tailing him, planning to lift it for someone they call the director. He clocked them immediately. Two idiots are following me, he thinks. I was bored anyways, let's see what they do. So the number is finally explained, and knowing it costs him something. The dragons deleted Ganon for being a Dark Mage. They deleted Diablo Volpir the same way, ages earlier, which means the record isn't just missing one name. Who else went into that hole with him? And up there nobody has noticed. Turns out those two students weren't hunting the bracelet at all. They were hunting Benna. He blasts her sideways to get her clear, and she screams, convinced he's the one attacking her. Lightning crosses the alley and the pair run for it. Great rescue. The girl he just saved is now crying harder than before, and that's the joke the page is actually telling. Then he accuses her of being in on the experiments because she's a Dark Mage too. She falls apart, word for word off the page. I really never wanted to do any harm to living creatures. She lost her parents 10 years ago. She was forced into this, and her colleagues call her useless and slow. Then she asks him the one thing nobody has asked him in an era. Please, teach me. He says no. Then he walls her in with invisible magic and reaches into her head because something about her mana is wrong, not corrupted, pure. His words, pure and uncontaminated, the same as his own. He'd never met another living person carrying darkness that clean. That's the hard fact of this block. Her power never cost a single life. He turns to leave anyway. Mid-flight, ghosts of his old companions flicker past him, every one of them calling him master. He stops in the air. Teacher, eh? The page never says who those people were. It just lets a man alone for 66,000 years hear his own title again and stall. Then he lifts a name out of her memories, Director Gab. Chapter 37 opens in the ancient era, and it's the closest thing to a confession he ever gives. In an old academy, mages complain they're running short of human material. A captive begs to be spared. Then the Dark Mage says it flat. There was a purpose for which he created dark magic, and that purpose was to destroy the gods regardless of the cost. He forsook his humanity and carried every sin that came with it. Then the line that sets up the next 3 chapters, the seeds I had sowed grew and bore horrendous fruit. I'll have to harvest myself. Cut to the present. Benna gets yanked by the tie by a blue-haired senior called Hela, who greets her with "Where the hell have you been, you trash?" He punishes her with a curse called pain amplification and calls it consequences. Jamie finds her, says her name, and asks if this loser is really what terrifies her. Hela comes back swinging, and Benna, cornered, finally lets go of something she never knew she had. Pink fire throws him across the room, and she's screaming that she won't be someone worthy of a place like this. Jamie's whole reaction is one line of praise. Good job, Benna, you just took a step forward. Then Hela demands to know what that spooky mana around him is. Jamie answers with a magic circle labeled erasure, and Hela stops being a problem. The page never says he dies, it erases him. That distinction matters, and this show keeps making it on purpose. Elsewhere, a silver-haired man at a desk is celebrating. Finally, Benna has awakened the power of the Valkyrie. Here's the fact that reframes the whole series. The Valkyrie were a tribe of fairies, the bellicose fairies, and they once went to war against the 12 gods. They lost. The survivors hid, so he isn't the only enemy those 12 ever made, and one of them is sitting right in front of him. We're skipping most of chapter 38 because the fight is padding with funny names. Curse of Itchiness, Curse of Toothache. Roughly 20 brainwashed mages throwing joke spells until Jamie claps once and drops the entire room with violet spikes. Two things in that chapter matter, and the first of them comes out of Gab's own mouth. Benna asks why he sent them to bring her in. He answers cheerfully, to harvest the power you've awakened, of course. He built the facility. He arranged 10 years of bullying, comforted her after every round of it, and never once stopped it. Then he tries to wake a dark aura he planted in her a decade back, and nothing happens. Jamie already scrubbed it out. He calls that a piece of cake. Chapter 39 opens with a caption that explains the man completely. Rank 7 was a taboo phrase around the Dark Mage Gab. He killed people for saying it out loud, and he never once reached it himself. The nickname is the Master of Curses because curses are the one thing he was ever good at, and the page hangs that title right next to a ceiling he never broke. So he screams and throws a blazing serpent at a 9-year-old. He's good at exactly one thing, and he uses it. He locks Jamie inside an illusion called Aesthetics of Stillness, a frozen instant built to shatter a mind through subjective eternity. Jamie walks straight out of it. Gab on the floor asks how. Thanks to this little artifact right here. Remember the purple bracelet Mayutre handed back in chapter 35? Shell of absolute immunity. Sit with that for a second. Gab spent his entire career building curses, and he loses to an object the boy in front of him invented to fight gods. Absolute immunity, there can be no such thing. It exists, he made it. Magic arrow, boulder breaker, chain whiplash follow, and the argument ends there. What comes next is the coldest thing he's done on camera. Gab rants about becoming king of this world. Jamie tells him to shut up and then refuses to let him die in peace. He opens a gateway to unnatural causes and sentences him. You will continuously die little by little, yet fail to ever die completely. Then he chains the soul and drags it out. Gab begs for the ending he was about to get. Just kill me now. He wants to rest. He doesn't get to. Jamie renames him on the spot, and a skeletal lich with one red eye stands up and introduces itself. I am the first lich you have reanimated. Neblo. Benna watches the man who ran her life for 10 years turn into furniture, and the page lets her sit there, unsure how to feel. Then he tells her what she is. Because you are a Valkyrie. The last one from a bloodline wiped out generations back for defying something stronger. She asks him to teach her again. He refuses flat, and his reason is technical. The Valkyrie have no affinity for magic, so there'd be no point in trying. That's the verdict on this arc. He burned her prison down and still won't take a student. So she travels as a pink squirrel. A transformation spell because a girl the facility is hunting can't ride openly in a noble's carriage. The being who terrified gods ends the chapter arguing with a rodent about drying bedsheets. That's this series in one page. Horror, then a squirrel, and neither one apologizes for the other. Apton at last. His mother cries in her father's arms after 9 years apart. Sarah decides Grandad made mommy cry and scolds him for it, and we're skipping the rest of the reunion. The line that matters lands over tea. The old man is only a rank 4 mage, and he warns that the entire world, much less the kingdom, will revolve around Jamie. Talent like that pulls in ambitious people. He drops the political fact of the block too. The Order of the Faith in Zenith is trying to wipe out the Order of the Faith in Payro completely. Then a stage threat near his mother sends Jamie into the hood midair, firing a fusion spell, lightning vacuum at a stranger. The stranger is Beryl Onyx, the Storm, one of only 5 swordmasters in the Kingdom of Seldom. He faked it to test the boy. So a grown swordmaster now knows the 9-year-old hits like a siege weapon. His mother's response is a smack on the head, and how can you do that to someone you've only just met? And a tribe that once marched on the 12 gods is riding in his carriage disguised as a squirrel. He started collecting their enemies. Nobody up there has noticed. Back at the Bell estate, Sears learns what that test actually was. A swordmaster aimed killing intent at her 9-year-old just to watch him react. Her father calms her down while the man apologizes. Jamie sits through all of it doing math in his head. One detail from that garden won't leave him alone. The man shut down his lightning vacuum without effort. That's his newest fusion spell, and it died in a stranger's hand. Jamie's private word for him is frighteningly powerful, so he asks it flat out. Are you by any chance a swordmaster? The answer comes with a title. Beryl Onyx, also known as the Storm. Here's the hard fact of this block, word for word off the page. There are 5 highly prized swordmasters in the entire Kingdom of Seldom. Sir Tarek's fan is generally accepted as the strongest, followed by Earl Welton, with Beryl Onyx equally as strong as the Earl. So the man who just tested a child is top 3 in a kingdom, dead level with Jamie's father. Beryl suggests the boy take up a sword too since the blood of Earl Welton runs in his veins. The grandfather kills that idea with a rumor. Jaime could reach rank 9 as long as he just continues to breathe. The boy says nothing and picks magic anyway. He has to prioritize regaining the power he once possessed, and a blade was never how he got it. Alone in the garden that night, he names the wall in front of him. Rank 7, Archmage isn't bought with raw output. It takes what the page calls an acceptance by magic. Magic itself has to agree to the promotion, and his old road up failed once before, so running it again isn't a plan. Then the pond opens. A fanged water beast comes out of it at him. He throws up a barrier, answers with lightning, and it isn't enough. That's the floor everything else climbs out of. The mage who made 12 gods work overtime can't handle one wild animal by himself. 3 slashes settle it before that gets tested further. The blade moves fast enough to open Jaime's cheek on the way past. The swordsman bows, silver hair, white coat, and oval opal at the throat. I am Sable, an advisor to Marquess Bell. Hunting these things, he says, is a hobby. Sable reports something else to the Marquess in private. He found creatures presumed to be demons near the estate, then lost the trail. The episode closes on a map of Apton soaked blood red. The town his mother brought him home to is sitting on a run of unsolved murders. The family has no idea they are the reason. The next episode is mostly legwork, so we're compressing it. 50 years ago, the Marquess's own father wiped out a mob of demons by killing their leader, and he now believes the survivors came back for the bill. He swears the hunt by the name of the Great Bell household. Sable also tells the room the boy could have handled the torque alone and praises his brilliance. File that away. That night, Jaime goes out hooded and finds a crowd in the street around a dead man whose heart has been taken. The guards say another one. Jaime already knows what a heart is worth here. It's ritual material for calling demons up from the underworld, so the killings aren't random butchery. They are payment aimed at his grandfather's house. He flies over Apton invisible to check on Ricky and almost gets caught by an archbishop of the Order of the Faith in Peyrot. One of only 3 in the order, radiating what Jaime reads as an incredible amount of vicarial power. The old man looks straight up at nothing, then waves it off as probably a squirrel. In this family's carriage, that isn't even wrong. Now the episode that turns the whole arc. Hooded again, Jaime feels power leaking out of one of Peyrot's sanctuaries and flicks a purple sigil at it. Ricky catches him first. Who are you? Then he laughs because his ambush failed and the two of them hide inside the Archbishop's own office. On order ground, Ricky says his apostle power runs almost complete. He can barely sense the undead aura on Jaime in here. That's a friend casually raiding the disguise. Then Ricky's face changes. A golden eye opens where his eye was, and the boy who just laughed at his failed ambush is gone. Somebody much older is using his mouth. Peyrot speaks through him. A detestable demonic power is awakening, she says, and she wants Jaime to go to the dark forest, which she calls the source of it all. Then a goddess says please to a 9-year-old. She wants it stopped before her sanctuary here is destroyed. The connection snaps and Ricky drops, wrung out. Sit with the shape of that for a second. One of the 12 stepped into her own apostle to beg a favor from a hooded stranger. She has no idea she's talking to the thing her side buried for 66,000 years. He doesn't correct her, he just banks it. He climbs back through his window and nearly walks into the silver-haired advisor, who asks casually whether he went for a stroll. Sable has news. Archbishop Saphira is visiting, Lady Sears was looking for him, and one more thing. You'd best be careful to stay away from Myrine Forest. 2 people warned him about that forest today. Only one of them works for his grandfather. Meanwhile, in a dark wood, 2 hooded figures lean over a huge pulsing mass. Hang in there, little one of them says. When you wake up, our mission will be complete. A bloodied hand pushes out from inside and gets taken by the wrist. Somebody's nursing something in there on schedule. We're skipping most of the next episode. It's his mother's childhood and the spine of it is enough. Beryl was the Onyx heir, taken in by the Bell household after a gold mine deal ruined his family, and his father was found bloodied and unresponsive in bed. Sears's father told him to live with us in my mansion from today on. He answered by giving himself to the sword and nothing else. Years later, at a ball, a nobleman asked Sears for a walk in the gardens, and Beryl put him on the floor in front of everyone. Her line, watching it, is the whole flashback. That is not the Beryl I once knew. So he challenges the man she was actually looking at. I challenge you to a duel, Welton. Her father had expected Beryl to marry her, and Sears slams the desk and refuses. He swung his swords like a demon, she says. That is not love. Her father asks if she loves someone else instead and she goes quiet, which is its own answer. The duel happens in pouring rain and Argano Welton wins it with 2 words. I win. He leaves Beryl on the ground with a red scar the man still wears in the present. Sir Beryl has departed in the middle of the night. 3 years later he comes back as a swordmaster and takes revenge on the 3 houses that caused the downfall of House Onyx. By then Sears is married and pregnant and her husband has picked a name. We should name our little boy Jamie. That's the beat I keep circling back to. The name was chosen out of love by a man who fought a duel for the right to give it. The thing that eventually answered to it had been waiting 66,000 years for a mouth. Back in the present, Archbishop Sephira arrives and embarrasses her, calling her Sears the mischievous and reminding the room the notorious troublemaker is a mother of 2 now. Sarah introduces herself. A small pink squirrel at her feet mutters, "Master, you're making a weird face." Even the Valkyrie can tell he's plotting at the dinner table. Then he asks his mother about Myrine Forest and the answer is a map. 6 of the most dangerous places in the world off limits to everyone. Myrine Forest is part of one of them, the Great Forest of Ariazard. Sears forbids him from going near it. He agrees out loud and in caption tells us there's a high chance Myrine Forest is the dark forest Peyro mentioned. He goes in that night hooded with black. Now watch what the forest does to him. He opens with chain lightning and detonation and then the complaint lands. He can't seem to use his dark mana in this forest. Benna can't use hers either. Something in these trees is switching off the one thing that makes him what he is. Be precise here because it's the difference between a good recap and a bad one. He didn't lose a rank. The forest is jamming him locally the way a room jams a signal. Even levitation quits mid-fall and drops them flat. He keeps walking toward the candlelight anyway. The light belongs to a ruin. The epigraph carved on the gate asks them either to leave or to come inside and the gate swings open on its own. Behind it is a gauntlet, an armored knight built to shrug off magic and automatic trap a swarm of war scorpions. He burns the gem of life on himself and admits he thought he was as good as dead. In town that night, a guard captain kneels over another heartless corpse, calls it the work of a demon, and tells a soldier to report to Lord Sable at once. He never gets to. Something hooded puts a hand through him from behind and calls him a fool. Then Sable arrives and Sable is not the victim of this scene, he's the hunter. I've been looking for you? He cuts the tainted body down, unimpressed, and notes that it takes more than this to subdue a body tainted with demonic aura. Public version, the Bell household's advisor is cleaning up the murders. Hold onto the word public. Inside the ruin, the last door is inscribed as the place where it sleeps, and it opens on a gigantic fanged bear that talks. It hits like the wall it is. Jamie goes down coughing blood and guessing at fractured ribs, and it's Benna who charges in swearing to protect her master. The last Valkyrie is now the one holding the line for him. Cut to a wall under a full moon. A silver-haired swordsman stands over a hooded captive with a cut face, calling him a filthy demon's lackey who must stay under my control at all times. Everything, he says, proceeds according to the father's plan. The page never puts a name in that panel, the opal at his collar does. Then the beast says something that should worry him. It accuses them of coming to steal the dark power it can feel radiating off Jamie himself, and it ties that power to something it calls the demon egg. He stops the killing blow by claiming he came at the request of the goddess Peyro. The guardian can't sense one drop of divine aura on him and demands proof. So he tells the truth, which is rarer. I am not a follower of Peyro. He cut a private deal with her instead, and in the recalled vision she admits the part that matters. She doesn't know why she's asking an outsider to do this instead of her own followers. A goddess is quietly aware that something about this stranger is the right tool and she can't say why. Now the Guardian's own report, the payload of the episode. About a month ago the demon egg appeared inside the ruin. He tried to crush it and a dark aura wrapped it and left it unscathed. Unable to break that shell, he used the ruin itself to seal off the source. The ruin, he says, is a magical artifact roughly 600 years old, written in a language he can't read. Then Jamie asks the one question that pulls the floor out. If the seal only holds while the bear stays inside, then the egg was never destroyed at all. So basically, nothing was done. A month of guarding and the thing in the basement is exactly as alive as it was on day one. Let's total this stretch honestly. He can't beat a lake monster alone, a swordmaster erased his best spell and a forest switches off his dark mana at the door, that's the floor. And on that floor one of the 12 just handed him the keys to her problem and a 600-year-old guardian is asking him for help. He's inside their world now with their blessing. Nobody up there has noticed. The talking guardian finally gives up his name and he does it like an insult. My name is the Baron, you lowly creature. Jamie's answer is to keep calling him a grizzly with a butter mouth. Then the Baron asks whether Benna carries a blocked power too, and Jamie says no, it isn't the same thing that's sealing the demon egg. So they make a deal. The Baron agrees to lead them to the egg and he cuts the seal he'd been holding shut. His own reaction is the tell. What? The dark mana doesn't trickle back, it floods all at once out of a 9-year-old's fist. 3 episodes of a mage working without his best tool get paid off in a single panel. And what he says while it lands is the line the whole stretch turns on. No one can control or stop me. He doesn't stop at his own body either. He pushes into the ruins systems and gives himself a job title, Vice Administrator, like a man logging into an account he never registered. Then he brags, and the brag is the hard fact of this block. I was the one that forged the 3 sacred artifacts after all. Behind him the art puts up the translucent silhouette of his true form, now hold 2 numbers. The Baron said this ruin is about 600 years old. Those artifacts belong to the era that got him sealed. The page never reconciles that, and neither will I. Because the ruin bites back. A hidden security ward hits his mind, not his body, and cuts his connection instantly. He ends up bleeding from the mouth while the Baron demands to know how he broke free so fast. Sit with the joke for a second. The being who terrified gods just got outplayed by the building's furniture. Then the page cuts to Apton, and it cuts on purpose. Jamie's own grandfather is told there are 9 more dead bodies just overnight and that his advisor Sable has gone missing. 1 page later, a silver-haired man grins on a rooftop, certain the incoming divine executors will reach Apton way too late. The page refuses to draw the line between those 2 panels. Remember that. Back in the ruin, purple runes light up when he walks past. He reads the inscription out loud, word for word off the page. The dead reaches out its hand, the waving sea of darkness under the starlight. Pain jolts through him mid-sentence, and a page unlocks and he recognizes it instantly. It's from his grimoire. What's on it is red and black and barely animated. An old man is swallowed by darkness under a crescent moon, and a prophecy says that darkness will one day be devoured by the beast that devours everything. The page gives it 1 name and no explanation. Leviathan, and Jamie says the sentence that reopens everything. I now know for sure that my memories are incomplete. Think about what that costs him. His entire plan runs on being the only one who remembers the war. If his own grimoire is holding pages he can't account for, then something he built is out there and he doesn't know its shape. He shakes it off, hands Benna a ring he pulled from the rubble, and she fires it off grinning. I love it, thanks master. Then a blue-haired stranger kicks the door in. Who are you pipsqueaks? We're compressing the fight because the reveal inside it is worth more than the choreography. Jamie recognizes her allegiance instantly and needles her with it. What's a follower of Zenith doing here? Are you here to get rid of the demon egg? And then the twist of the knife. It'll be ironic for someone that believes in a god to protect it, you know. She gives him nothing. I won't tell you that. What she will admit is what she hates, and it's petty and perfect. You have pink hair and a gigantic sledgehammer, 2 of that which I despise the most in the world. Both of those are Benna. Benna takes a bad hit and goes down hard. Jamie answers with Curse of Pain reversal. She shrugs it off and armor grows on her, wings and a lance, vicarial power on a bishop's level. So he does the pettiest possible thing. He opens the gateway to unnatural causes and says 3 words. Come forth, Neblo. Then he jokes that a holy warrior and a lich will be a great match since they're both really annoying. The next episode gives the lich a full name card. Rank 6 Lich Neblo. Reporting for duty, my master. Now we're skipping what the hooded worshippers do at the egg site. It's the ugliest sequence in this whole stretch and it changes nothing you need. One thing and it matters. The egg has been quietly feeding on wasted energy for weeks and it's far bigger than anyone planned for. When the aura finally erupts, even Neblo tells him to run because that monster can even crush death itself. Meanwhile, Apton wakes up. A guard reports a disturbance in Myrine Forest and the Marquess snaps back. Summon the soldiers immediately. Sears comes running into the room and her line is the one that hurts. I can't find Jamie anywhere. A young woman standing nearby smiles slightly and says he's gone into Myrine Forest. Jamie, inside it, sends Azard and Ryza to carry the wounded Benna out. Then the shell cracks and the thing inside introduces itself with manners. I am Lyrda, a baron of the great underworld. It's surprised a human knows so much about demons, so it offers him a reward instead of eating him. The reward is the shell of absolute immunity off his wrist, and what he gets for it is a peaceful death. Jamie's counteroffer is 2 words. Are you out of your mind? He takes a hit and then he does something we haven't seen once in 50 episodes. He activates the shell. The bracelet he pulled out of a 700-year-old grave finally goes live, a purple ring closing around him, and he fires back with a name. Leviathan. 1 hard fact from the page's own footnote printed right there in the panel. Baron is the lowest of the 5 demon noble ranks. And the episode signs off on a chibi card of Sarah, near tears, asking where her brother is. That's the whole engine of this show in one throwaway panel. She's worried about a 9-year-old who is, at that exact moment, trading threats with a demon aristocrat about which of them dies politely. The next episode gives Benna the weapon she keeps for the rest of the series and gets one thing wrong that a lot of readers repeat. The hammer isn't a gift from a spirit, the hammer is the speaker. I am called Filion. I was crafted by the greatest blacksmith to be wielded by the queen of your people. Then the sails pitch, hold me in your hands and wreak havoc. The rest of that fight is compression, so here's the honest version. Jaime lines up a spell called Path of Obliteration which dumps everything Leviathan absorbed at once and it misses. He knows exactly how badly he blew it. It was a rare perfect opportunity that Grizzly and Benna set up for me. The demon asks if he has any last words. A green cloak comes through the trees and cuts it down. Beryl again. Episode 52 is where the story stops being about a forest. It opens somewhere else entirely at the Temple of the Order of the Faith in Peyrot, where a silver-haired swordsman forces his way past an elderly priest. He gives a title instead of a name. The First Blade of Lord Zenith. His companion asks casually whether the apostle has already escaped. The old priest asks him to leave if he has the slightest respect for the goddess. The answer is a declaration of war on a deity. Today, the goddess shall lose all she once had and abdicate from her position. Read that as policy, not as a threat. Zenith isn't hunting a heretic. Zenith is running a coup against another god with a sword instead of a doctrine. Cut back to the forest and Beryl finally explains himself. Beryl Onyx, seeker of the hidden truth of the world. He took a job to come here. He came to take the item that's kept in the ruin in accordance with Isis's will, and that's all we get. A name, a will, no face and no title attached to it. Getting in is a comedy beat, and I love that the show let it be one. Grizzly and Jaime argue over who actually administrates the ancient ruin, and Jaime has to hand the authority back so the gate will open for its rightful owner. Then the 3 of them go down, Benna unconscious in Jaime's arms. 600 years of sealed architecture, unlocked by an admin permissions dispute with a bear. Inside, a figure rises out of the water and gives the second full name of the episode. My name is Armian. He's the man who made this place, and he introduces himself with his own resume, a genius magical artifact craftsman and a rank 9 mage. He's also long dead. He never joined Isis's group either. I am not a member of the Frontier myself. He was just holding Graham, the Thunderblade, as a favor. Then comes the reveal that changes the size of this show. Armian says he built Gremia in preparation for the advent of the One, meaning whoever owns the Dark Mana with the power to slay even the gods. He wasn't guarding a vault. He was building a welcome, and he hands Jaime full authority over the artifact on the spot. No test, no bargain. It gets better and quieter. Armian mentions he learned the ancient language by studying rare traces someone left behind. Jaime, rattled, asks whether there are traces of Diablo Volpir. Armian has never heard that name in his life. He just says maybe it was meant to be handed over to you all along. Centuries ago, a stranger built a machine for a man he couldn't name. Nobody up there has noticed. And then the show sends the bill. Lars Armetic reaches the temple far too late, and the priest bleeding out on the floor gets his full title from Lars's own mouth. I can't leave you behind like this, Archbishop Saphira. Saphira spends his last breath refusing the obvious order. It is not revenge you must seek. Go and protect the apostle and the saint. His hand drops. Lars swears it in Peyrot's name anyway. The next episode picks up in the rain, straight out of the ruin, no time skip. Grizzly complains that his connection to Gremia got severed the second Jaime came back. Jaime shows off the blue crystal. I met Armian's spirit and received the artifact of Gremia. Then he stops mid-sentence, feels something wrong with Ricky and stops being a tourist. In Apton the report lands. Demons in disguise rampage through the estate, the archbishop has been murdered and witnesses put Sir Sable at the scene. And the fight teaches you his trick in 2 sentences. Reversal of causality throws the damage he dodges back on whoever swung. It also charges him cumulative damage for the privilege. Ricky arrives glowing and yells the line of the episode. You and I are no different when it's the very power of a god you face. Lars puts a name on it out loud. It's Sable, he was the one that caused all this. And Jaime's reaction isn't fear, it's professional shame. How could I have been so blind to let a spy of Zenith walk around freely in Apton? That's a 666-year-old counterintelligence failure, and he knows it. Go back over what Sable actually did with his access. He hunted demons publicly for the Bell household. He told Jaime personally to stay well away from Myrine Forest. Read that again now. The man wasn't protecting a child from the forest. He was keeping the only person who could read that forest on the wrong side of it. Sable's plan for him is stated plainly, and it's a knife to a 9-year-old's throat. I was aiming to slice the kid's throat. Something green cuts in at the last possible instant and Jamie's inner voice is unusually honest about it. Beryl Onyx, I would have surely died if it wasn't for him. Beryl's answer is 4 words, let me handle this. Then the show pays off its own magic rule on screen. Sable holds up an arm gone black and ruined and admits the bill. I had to pay a steep price for it. He still wins. He cuts Beryl down, turns to the rest of the group and says you're up next. They throw up a golden barrier and he laughs at it. A puny barrier like this can't hold off the power given by my father. The chapter ends mid-explosion and the next one opens by finishing that same sentence from the enemy's own mouth. May the will of the Father be done. It's a genuinely great cut. In the rain afterward, Beryl cradles a fallen body and apologizes to someone who isn't there. I am sorry, Sears, I should have at least saved your. He never finishes it. A voice interrupts him, and if you read the balloon shape you'll notice it's hexagonal and blue. That's telepathy and it's Jamie. Please don't tell me you're thinking about someone's mother at this moment, Sir Beryl. That's not a villain gloating, that's a 9-year-old ribbing a dying swordmaster to get him back in the fight. Then he goes to work. It's not exactly a healing spell but something similar. He asks Beryl to think of anything they can still do and gives him the actual math. At this rate, none of us will survive. 1 dying paladin, 1 shredded swordmaster, 1 apostle, and the only one running triage is the child everyone in this scene is trying to protect. Beryl finds a gap and puts his blade through Sable, and Jamie calls in the thing he was handed 3 episodes ago by name like a weapon. Gremia, release your power. The enemy, standing there wearing power on loan from a god, calls it nothing but a child's play. What answers him is the thesis of this entire show, printed in capital letters. This is the very power created for the purpose of annihilating the likes of you. And it works, not deflected, not blocked. My divine power is dissipating. Divine power coming apart on contact with dark mana. That's the proof of concept for Plan 66, 666 years in the making, and it fires in a muddy field in front of nobody. But he doesn't get to finish it, and I want to be exact about why. His body locks up. My body won't move. What saves everyone is the pendant around his neck. A woman's voice comes out of it, begging, please do not hurt my little boy any longer. I will have to send you somewhere very, very far away. And she adds that she's already paid the price. The enemy lands more than 6,000 miles away in the desert of the southern continent Brion, and the desert has a landlord. A lore card introduces Blazer, highest-ranking priest and grandmaster of the Holy Knights in service of the Order of the Faith in Ra, the god of sun. Then Blazer says the word that collapses 3 characters into one. Didn't expect to see you here, Cleon. Sable, the First Blade, and Sir Cleon are the same man. Jamie wakes up in his own bed with a yelp and his mother and sister are already on him. If you do this ever again, Mommy will never forgive you. Sears tells him where the pendant came from. His late grandmother left it for him and she had a gift of foresight. His grandfather passed it on with instructions. This is a magical artifact that will come to your aid in a time of need. The last page is the funeral of Archbishop Sapphira. Mourners call him a great person and swear they'll never forgive whoever did this. And in the middle of that, Jamie's inner voice delivers the coldest line in the section. I guess I should give up on trying to turn him into an undead. The family thinks they're comforting a traumatized boy. They're standing next to a war criminal doing inventory. So let's total it. He got his dark mana back, took command of a 600-year-old machine built specifically for him, and made a god's borrowed power fall apart on contact. He also missed his big shot, needed a rescue, needed a dead grandmother, and lost an archbishop on his watch. And the loop just changed shape. It isn't only whether the 12 find him first, it's whether he finds out what he already did before whatever he built out there finds him. Episode 56 opens back over that same grave, and this time the page finishes the thought he left hanging. He gives up on raising Sapphira because I am walking a different path this time. That's the whole character in one sentence. The necromancer decides not to. Then a summons. Lord Peyro wants to speak with you. He gets walked down a corridor where nobody may carry a flame. We're not allowed to bring or create any source of light by rule. At the end sits a sacred pool, the sanctum of beginning. A goddess rises out of the water to greet a 9-year-old boy. On the way, his escort mentions something strange. Sable vanished along with the flash of light that came from your pendant. Jamie answers it flatly. My grandmother, who had a gift of foresight, made it for a moment like that. Park that sentence somewhere safe. Episode 57 hands you the whole story behind it. In the pool, Peyro is glowing. I am elated to have delivered a blow to that bastard Zenith thanks to your help. She calls him a fine human acknowledged by a divine. Sit with that. A god is congratulating the one being in history who got sealed away for trying to kill gods and she has no clue. Cut to the headquarters of the Order of the Faith in Zenith. An old official is coming apart because Sir Cleon is missing. Their oracle, the Sphere of Reckoning, predicts their forces get crushed if they wage holy war without him. The search of Apton found nothing but a dead demon named Canna, so the war stalls, and that delay is Jaime's runway. Back in the water, he runs a test on a goddess. He tells her he came across Diablo Volpir's powers in a random place all by chance. A lie aimed at his only ally. Then he asks the question these 3 hours keep circling. Do the gods know Diablo Volpir reincarnated? Her answer is a gift. I don't know. He was imprisoned in the darkness that existed for eternity. Even gods aren't allowed to mess with such a space. And then the thought that justifies every plan he has made. They don't know about my death or my reincarnation. Nobody up there has noticed. He's been rebuilding inside a blind spot. She keeps going and it gets better. She names the other 2 weapons he built before they buried him. Stoutness, that grants impregnable sturdiness. God Killer, that bestows the power to slay the gods. Then the dangerous part. I will find the remaining 2 artifacts in the near future. His patron just announced she's hunting the weapon built to kill her kind, and he says nothing. Then comes the map on an actual chessboard. Zenith, Lily and Dragon Lord Brahmin sit on one side. Dryan and Cullen teamed up on another. Tantiras and Arbella joined forces while Zillion allied with Oblian and her own corner. Ra, Flame Emperor and I are alone with no allies. Ra, she adds, is more like the ruling deity presiding over the others. 2 things worth flagging. Zenith had been a loyal dog to Ra before he schemed against Peyro, so Heaven has a coup problem. And remember chapter 34, where the page set Dragon Lord Brahmin against the 12? Here he's at their table. The story never reconciles those panels, and I won't pretend it did. Then Peyro closes the deal on his skin. Check the palm of your left hand. I already gave you the sign of my promise. A sigil burns into view. Back at the Welton estate, armored clerics called divine executors drop to one knee. Jaime is now a saint of Peyro, marked in the body, exempt from any secular laws through something called sacrosanctity. His mother can barely form the sentence, but to think you, Jaime, are a saint. Sarah just wants a definition. Mommy, what's a saint? There's the series in miniature. Last stop is Beyril Onyx, bandaged in bed, answering a thank you with a lead. The Frontier, a secret society that seeks the hidden truth of the world. There is a rank 9 mage there that can help you. Episode 57 opens on that exact panel and Jaime turns it down. I have faith that I'll eventually become a rank 9 sooner or later. Beyril offers to introduce him to Isis instead. Look at what just happened. He refused a shortcut from a man who thinks he's mentoring a gifted child. Home business next, and we're compressing it hard. Benna, still stuck in the squirrel body with the red scarf, is furious about being left in the forest. Filion, the warhammer only Jaime can hear, mocks her for still not flying. Then Grizzly gives up the address. The deepest part of the great forest of Ariazard near the Spring of Time's passage. Ricky and Anna get sent to Peyro's headquarters in Apton to train as clerics for better protection. 2 weeks later the Weltons ride home to Heiss. The reunion is loud, Sarah shouting for her father, Sears breaking at the gate. Jaime walks up last. His father looks him over. Looks like you've grown a little. I did. That night the boy asks him what a sword means to a swordmaster. And Earl Argano Welton tells his 9-year-old the worst chapter of his own life. People used to call him the Fiend. It took a series of regrets and self-reflection before he understood it was never the sword he'd been swinging. It was hatred. Then the line that makes this the best father scene in the cut. The sword means redemption to me. That's when he truly became a swordmaster. Now think about who's listening. A man who spent 66,666 years sealed in the dark, plotting revenge, just got told the hatred was the real weapon. He doesn't argue, he files it. In a dream, Peyro quietly rewrites an earlier episode. There's a keyword tied to the forgotten history. The instant anybody says it out loud, the entire surroundings and conversation get broadcast to all of the gods. Then they dispatch someone to silence whoever learned it. That isn't a curse, that's surveillance. Remember Ganon's grave back in chapter 34 and those 700 years carved into the math? Now you know why he died. He got close to the truth and he spoke it, and Dragon Lord Brahmin's dragons came for him. That's not a monster killing a mage, that's a cleanup crew closing a file. Then Peyro asks the cruel one, could you defeat one of the 12 gods at the moment? He concedes it on the page. She's right. His old methods will only take him so far and he needs to devise a new strategy. The art holds on a clenched fist. That fist is the thesis of everything ahead. And then the finale drops the reveal that makes this family tragic. A young Marquess Bell, his grandfather on his mother's side, comforts a woman named Tina. She has the gift of foresight and she despises it. Because of that useless gift, every member of her family met their doom. He offers her a replacement family for the rest of our lives. Years later, hollowed out, he remembers what her foresight cost him. It pointed him at an advisor who turned out to be a traitor. Dying, Tina presses a pendant into his hand with one instruction: you will know whom you'll have to give this to the moment you see him. Then the request that closes Season 1. Look after the child in the prophecy so that the child who shares our blood does not turn out to be the great calamity of the world. His own grandmother saw him coming decades before his birth, and the pendant that ripped Sable off him 2 episodes ago came from her hand to his. So here's the verdict from this side of the screen. The loop grew a second half. 12 gods are certain Diablo Volpir died in the dark, and they're wrong. One family has prayed for decades that the child of the prophecy isn't the calamity, and they're right without knowing it. Both blind spots share a dinner table. Season 2 opens at night with a divine executor at the door. Sir Eric Tedley confirms the death. I can't believe those filthy goons of Zenith actually summoned a demon. Argano's reply is short: I'll make them pay for their atrocities, and Eric reminds the room that young Lord Jaime is a saint of our order. Then a scene nobody expects to hurt. Sears admits she is terrified. War between the Order of Perot and the Order of Zenith could break out any moment, and her father warned that Jaime could have been chosen specifically to take part in it. Argano swears to protect his children even against a god. He has no idea which side of that sentence his son is on. Next morning, Jaime asks for the family swordsmanship. His father refuses. The technique of our house isn't something you can master while training in magic simultaneously. Picking up a sword is not something to be trifled with lightly. Jaime doesn't flinch. I was never more serious in my life. So Argano draws a live blade on a 9-year-old and hands him a wooden one. Show me your resolve. Magic, sword, anything in your arsenal, and he won't soften his aura. Jaime summons Black, rides those bat wings through the air, and takes strikes until the wooden sword snaps. Then he catches the real blade with a bare hand and lands a spell called Grasp of Devastation, the Hand of Ruin. His father stops cold and asks where he learned it. The answer is 3 words: I created it. That's not a kid showing off. That's an old man admitting he still writes magic from scratch. He explains himself too, and this is the inspiration beat: not to look cool, for my own future. After what that trip put him through, magic alone isn't going to suffice, and he needs more weapons in his arsenal for the battles to come. I am young, but I am not so young. I am determined. Argano folds and sets the time. 6 sharp tomorrow morning. Okay, father. Then a carriage rolls up and a blonde girl with sea green tips and pearls asks for Lord Jaime. I missed him so much. Remember chapter 13 when he realized Jane's soul had reincarnated without her memories? That's Rebecca Ballet at his gate. Episode 59 is a training comedy, and we're skipping almost all of it. Snoring squirrel, Sarah hunting the pet cookies, no consequences, 2 facts survive. His instructor isn't his father, it's Leonardo Hamilton, Constable of the Fear Knights, with a full name card. And the number: 5 hours and 17 minutes of running, no mana, no divine power of Perot. His father's own childhood record was 3 hours and 36 minutes, and he admits it while grinning. 1 hard fact per block, and that's the one. A being who once terrified deities is grinding endurance laps in a child's body, on purpose, refusing to cheat with the magic he already owns. Episode 60 finally caches an artifact. Remember Gremia, the 600-year-old ruin Armian signed over to him in Chapter 52? It's now a flying structure above the Welton residence at night, folding itself into a private arena. Benna trains up there out of the squirrel disguise. Her words: we must get stronger at all costs in order to face the 12 gods. Down on the ground, Leonardo demonstrates basic slashes and thrusts, and Jaime reads him instantly. You minimized the strength you exerted, yet the power of the impact became stronger. Then the private note: I learned that footwork from a swordmaster I knew more than 60,000 years ago. His father dangles the prize too, the house technique called Void Sever, once the basics are done. Then something teleports into the training ground and he snaps into a stance. You have guts to trespass in the residence of House Welton. It's Ash Ballet ambushing him for fun. She summons a wind blade he recognizes on sight, a hero elemental named Ryfid serving King Wind elemental Sylphid. It appeared, stared at her, vanished, and the next day she could call it at will. Jaime's private read: she has to be a reincarnation as well. Careful with that one, it's his suspicion and not a confirmed fact on the page. But he's counting reincarnated souls inside his own social circle now, and the count keeps climbing, 9 years old and already running a census on the afterlife. The block closes in the audience chamber. Argano and a blonde advisor compare notes on Zenith. The leader of their 7 strongest knights is still missing, and the shadow agency Tegris reports he never checked in anywhere. One of them says it flat, even Beryl was no match for him. So a holy order sits frozen, waiting on a man never walking back because a dead grandmother's pendant took him off the board. And the last words of the block are about declaring war. 12 gods still believe Diablo Volpir died in the dark. His own family prays he isn't the calamity. Which one finds out first? While that order sits frozen, the boy they're scared of is losing a fight with his own feet. We're compressing episode 61 hard because most of it is failed footwork and a girl with a crush. 3 things survive the scissors. The steps he's failing are called Thousand Seas, and the name card gives us the creator, Chervil Welton, previous Lord of House Welton. That's Jaime's grandfather on his father's side, not the Marquess from Apton. 2 different old men, and this series will make you keep them straight. Leonardo demonstrates, and Mana scorches a footprint into the ground with every step. 4 hours later, Jaime still can't copy it, and the fix ends up coming from a wolf. Rebecca's water spirit gets a name card here. Indarin, high water elemental in service of the water elemental king. Its verdict on him is blunt. His movement is artificial and forced, so he stops steering, lets the flow carry him, then fuses the steps with a spell. The training ground vanishes under a whirlpool that swallows Rebecca too. The mage who terrified gods needed posture notes from a water wolf. Episode 62 opens with his father hauling both kids out of the flood. Argano is stunned for a very specific reason. Jaime didn't just learn Thousand Seas, he improved it, and Argano never could. His read on his own son, word for word off the page, is that the boy is chosen by both magic and sword. Leonardo quits on the spot. I have nothing more left to teach young Master Jaime. He also confesses he lied earlier. Only 2 in 10 ordained knights ever master Thousand Seas, so the kid is already ahead of most of the house. He hands over a parting gift the page never bothers to show us. What replaces him is the family's real inheritance. Void Sever, the ultimate swordsmanship technique of House Welton, the one that cuts through the void. Argano takes the job himself. I'm proud of you, Jaime. I will be your instructor starting tomorrow, a father teaching the oldest thing in the room how to hold a sword. We're skipping the goodbye subplot with the ballet sisters, but the feast around it matters. It's thrown in honor of Viscount Ballet, and it's really a war council because Zenith order attacked Apton and endangered Marquess Bell. The Red Lotus Mage pledges his house, and the page finally gives him a full name. Lichter Simon, Lord of Reezen. Then Ash Ballet accuses Jaime of preferring her older sister. He claims he's more than 60,000 years old. Far too old to love a child. 4 months later, snow, a road, a hooded Jaime chewing stale bread. A bandit leader charges him, and a mage teleports in and drops the man with spatial magic soul displacement. The name card reads Siegfried of Space, 7th Elder of the Magical Society of Kingdom of Seldom, and he says he can't wait to meet Jaime Welton in person. Jaime hears none of it. He's complaining that the bread hurts his teeth. Episode 63 cashes the whole training arc in with one number. Jaime masters Void Sever in 4 months. His father needed 2 years. Argano's answer is the sentence every teacher in this story ends up saying. I have nothing else to teach you now. That's 2 instructors retired inside 3 episodes. Then the uninvited guest walks in, and his backstory is why he matters. Siegfried was born a commoner to parents of slave status, and he clawed his way to youngest elder in the history of the society. The caption calls him the greatest talent in the history of mages until Jaime showed up and stole that title. Argano explains what actually scares him. The magical society is 3 rival factions. The royal court mages under 1st Elder Offenzinger, the king's own teacher. The nobility under 2nd Elder Marquess Rinmel, the same man who floated rank 9 over a 9-year-old back in episode 2. And the egalitarians under 5th Elder Luke Prezel, born common like Siegfried. The bait is an artifact called the Crown of Omniscience, said to grant vast knowledge, maybe even to clear up part of the forgotten history. Jaime's answer is 4 words, I want to go. Then he haggles anyway because he's nobody's prodigy. If they want something from me, they must offer something in return. In private, Siegfried scans him and finds 3 mana cores, lungs, heart, stomach, with a 4th one under construction, rank 9 potential in a body that size. Then Jaime compliments him out loud, and the compliment is a landmine. He says Siegfried could even hold his own in the era of his previous life. The reply is, you're making me blush, Lord Jaime. He doesn't catch it, and nobody up there has noticed. The trip isn't 2 weeks either, it's at least 2 years, and he tells his family like he's reading a weather report. Sarah hands over her stuffed animal, Cherry, so it can protect him. Sears cries into his shoulder. His father gives him a relic sword called Scud. They're arming a stranger and they'll never know it. Episode 64 is a travel episode carrying 2 live grenades. First, the map. The Keltonian Mountains hold the Stone Alliance, 6 properties whose mines feed the kingdom, and Sandermain is the one rich in mana stones. Siegfried also warns him that plenty of people have walked the sword and magic path and gone mediocre at both. Then he tells a story. 1,000 years back, an active volcano here went quiet, sealed by one mysterious mage with pointed ears who then vanished. The warning left behind is word for word off the page. When the calmed beast wakes up from its slumber, that will mark the beginning of the disastrous end. Hold on to that beast. Archers ambush them and a bald warrior announces he's there to avenge his brother. Siegfried fakes helplessness and lets the kid work. Jamie answers with Welton style #1, Whirlwind, then Welton style, modified 1000 Cs, and the ambush ends inside a page. Siegfried's verdict: he's worthy of the title Spellsword. New epithet earned on camera. Grenade 2 is a shop that looks abandoned. Inside is Madame Curiel, an alchemist and perhaps the greatest one in the history of mankind. Rank 8, loyal to no domain, running stores worldwide linked by portals she built. Jamie throws up a reflex barrier and her golden staff erases it because that staff nullifies spells up to rank 5. Her price is the heart of a shadow lamb, sold in 2 days at a private auction beneath the Rhythm Museum. Episode 65 is the pillar of this stretch, so we're slowing down. Night. Jamie runs the snowy rooftops in a hood, chasing a signal only he can feel. Back at the hideout, he lets his companion out of her disguised form. You may come out now, Benna. Then he warns her she has to hide in Gremia all day again tomorrow. He tails a shipment of low-grade mana stones through the streets and the bracelet on his wrist goes off. The shell of absolute immunity is reacting to something inside a heavy crate. He counts at least 3 magical seals, maybe as many as 6. Then he says it out loud. One of my 3 sacred artifacts. Remember the list Perot laid out for him back in episode 56? Shell of absolute immunity, stoutness, god killer. He forged all 3 and one of them is riding in a box toward a private underground auction. He can't afford to bid on his own property, so the god slayer goes out looking for a loan. The lender is Madame Curiel and the page opens her up first. She mourns a dead son named Finn over a harmonica, saying she tried everything money could possibly buy and still couldn't save him. Then she offers unlimited gold under a contract of souls. One must leverage one's own soul as collateral, plus his future help entering the Shadow Realm. That realm belongs to the dark elemental Queen Bernice and Curiel wants in. And then, grinning, hands folded into a heart shape, he tells a woman he met yesterday exactly who she's lending to. Not many know about this, but Am Diablo Volpir. That's word for word off the page, and it redraws the map of this whole story. Sit with what that costs him. 12 gods still don't know he came back, and he just handed the name to an alchemist for a line of credit. Azard and Ryza earned it. Armian already knew. Curiel got told for free because he wanted the money faster. Is that arrogance, or did he price the risk before he opened his mouth? 2 days later, the basement of the Rhythm Museum. Siegfried sits beside him in disguise, pleased that Madame Curiel got them great seats and catches the scent of the forest nearby. The opening lot is a pair of elven slaves sold to the room for 3 million gold. Nobody in that crowd flinches. That's the establishing shot for everything that comes after. Jamie takes the heart of a shadow lamb for 100 million gold. Then Benna, masked and in a gown, wins a gemstone called Stoutness for 800 million and cheers, I got us the item, master. 2 of his 3 sacred artifacts are back in his hands. Then the lights die across the entire city, the vault empties, and a guard screams that someone stole everything. Outside, armed elves block the group, furious about what just got sold in there. Jamie smiles and tells them to return the stolen items before he kills all of them. Episode 66 turns that into a brawl and we're compressing it. An elf mage throws up a wall of green vines, swearing anyone at that auction house deserves to suffer for all eternity. Jamie drops a spell called Fatal Attraction onto a swordsman named Isaiah. Then a calm man named Han walks in and switches everyone's magic off. He offers a truce in exchange for the heart and the stoutness. And while he's talking, his power cancels the spell hiding Jamie's hair. It comes back emerald green and Han reads it instantly. Welton, you must be a Welton, are you by any chance, Jamie? Han belongs to the frontier, the same outfit as Beryl Onyx, and he teleports 6 people without a word of incantation. He also drops a country name worth filing away. The Kingdom of Harmonia, Western Continent, currently under rebellion. The frontier is pretty much behind. And then comes the reason they entered seldom at all. a golden key to break a seal inside the Keltonian volcano. The seal holds a beast and the caption names 3 of them at once. Black, the supporter of complex equations, Yermangander, the ruler of the oceans, Behemoth, the colossal beast, spirit familiars that Diablo created to help fight the war against the 12 gods. Now look hard at the panel for black, dark purple mass, 1 yellow eye, slit pupil. That's the bat he summoned in a nursery back in Chapter 3. He didn't conjure a pet that day, he called one of his own soldiers home and told nobody. His reaction to Behemoth lands harder than the fight did. So Behemoth was alive, I thought it had surely died at the end of the war. He keeps finding traces of Diablo Volpir buried all over this kingdom. Ramu hands the items back, Han says he'll see him around, Jamie Welton, and the standoff dissolves. Then a bald man in a black suit strolls up and flattens one of them with a single punch. My name is Darius at level 2.01, also known as the King of the Undercity. Here's the channel's verdict on this block. He walked out with an artifact, an epithet, and a soldier he thought died at the end of the war. He also mortgaged his soul and gave his real name to a stranger who trades in souls. The gods still aren't looking. The market is, so what's that secret worth and who's already bidding? The muscle the auction house sends after them is blind. He's also gone undefeated in the Undercity battle cage for more than 10 years. Darius, the Iron Fist, also known as the King of the Undercity. He just starts taking Jamie's group apart, one body at a time. Watch how the chapter measures people. Darius does introductions with numbers. He drops the elf fighter first and says, know your place 055. Then he puts down 2 more and adds 073 and 049. Same applies to you weaklings. Those aren't names, they're power readings spoken as insults. Han answers with the bell staff, bell of alteration, karma, then an explosive blaze that swallows the field in gold. The smoke clears and Darius hasn't got a scratch. He tells them the hit only pushed his own power level up to 172, that's the flex. Their best combined attack was worth a rounding error on his personal scale. Then he tells them what he wants. Hand over the stolen items and I will grant you quick deaths. One of them tries the polite exit, claiming they're invited guests of the auction, and why would he care? The vault emptied 2 chapters ago and his group is the name the auction house decided to bill for it. So Jamie steps forward. The blonde man in the white robe, Siegfried, asks, are you sure about this, kiddo? Jamie gives him 3 words back. Trust me, bro. That's the humor of this series in a nutshell. The oldest thing in the room talks like a boy his own size right up until the mana moves. The fight happens inside Gremia, deployed as a battlefield he can bend. Remember the ruin back in Chapter 52 where the Spirit Army handed him full authority over that artifact? This is the payoff, and it's the first time Gremia works as a weapon instead of a lock. Darius answers with space recognition, seeing everything in a radius despite the blindness, then a crushing vacuum press. He also wraps his own body in aura like plate armor, and then he apologizes before he swings. I wouldn't hurt a young child in normal circumstances, he says, but I have no choice this time. I'm sorry, kid. Jamie survives that punch by calling the artifact he bought at the auction stoutness. The gemstone Diablo Volpir forged himself back when he had a body that could do it. The crowd reads it out loud for us. He literally neutralized the effect of Gremia with raw strength? Impossible. So Jamie stops holding back. He fuses the family swordplay with dark magic and lands Void Sever enhanced by stoutness clean across the champion's guard. Darius only manages half a sentence. This technique. And then he catches the blade. Bare hand, no weapon, under a card that reads soul displacement, and he says, that's enough, the fight is over. Here's the channel's read. This is the only real defeat in our whole cut. It isn't the protagonist getting weaker, it's the ceiling of the world getting drawn on the page for the first time. Then Darius smiles and says, I am delighted to meet you, Jamie Welton. I'm an old friend of your grandfather, Chervil Welton. Remember that name card back in Chapter 61? Previous Lord of House Welton, the swordmaster who created Thousand Seas. The blind champion was never here to kill him. Jamie just freezes and says one word, what? The next chapter is called Who Are You? And it spends its opening on the answer. Darius met Chervil about 10 years back at a pub he frequented in Lewin. 2 monsters clocked each other across a bar and then they trained together every single day. That's the version of male friendship this series believes in. And in all those years, Chervil refused to show him one technique. He was saving it for a grandson who hadn't been born yet. When Darius asked why not the son, Chervil answered like a man closing a book. He has already reached enlightenment of his own. He doesn't need mine. That's Argano. It's the coldest compliment a father has paid anyone in this series. Then we get the technique itself, word for word off the page. Pinnacle Sword, Sky Opener. It doesn't cut the enemy, it removes a part of space, and Darius drops the fact that reframes the whole power ladder. With that sword, Chervil quietly reached Grandmaster, and the lore plaque says no human has ever made it to that level as of yet. Blacer and Sertarix are only the closest. Sit with the size of that. A man reached the theoretical peak of human combat, told nobody, and kept it because he decided it belonged to a child who didn't exist yet. That child turned out to be a 66,000-year-old Dark Mage wearing a child's face. Jamie promises to reach that level. Darius wishes him immense progress by the next time they meet. We're compressing the raid on the trafficker's hideout because only 3 things in it matter. First one is ugly. Jamie heals a wounded fighter, whispers, "Allow me inside your head," and plants a compulsion that makes the man invite him along on a mission. Why am I speaking against my own will? Second is Benna working her own thread with Filion, hunting the elves that were sold as property at that auction. And note what the page does with Filion. A hooded stranger watches her flatten a hellhound with a single hit, hears her arguing out loud with nobody, and thinks she spoke to her hammer just now. Her legendary war hammer talks, and only the people it picks can hear it. Third is the execution. The trafficker looks at Jamie's emerald hair and correctly identifies him as a Welton, which is exactly the wrong thing to be right about. Jamie tells him he should feel honored to become a part of Leviathan's energy and ends him on the spot. No trial, no speech, no hesitation. The boy who takes his mother's scolding at breakfast does this before lunch. Then the elves are free, and one of the elf fighters takes one look at the red hair of the woman beside her and starts shouting. She's the missing Valkyrie princess. Gone 10 years, presumed dead, that's Benna. The girl he pulled out of a curse lab is royalty, and neither of them knew. Jamie hands her a communication crystal and says it's for if she wishes to meet her family. She's left alone, turning it over. Meet my family. Chapter 69 opens on a snowy peak before the title card even runs. A party from the frontier chains a golden device to something enormous and wakes it up. What stands up is confused, shrunken, and doesn't sound like it expects to. It's Behemoth. Now here's a piece of craft worth stealing. For exactly one panel, a different face appears, older, lit gold, saying, "I have returned." The caption under it is Behemoth's thought. He looks different, but the aura around his body. One page later, Jamie is a small boy again, whispering, "Don't say anything. I'm hiding my identity from them. We must play along for now." That panel is a recognition test, not an age up. His body changed completely, and the creature still knew him by aura in under a second, which raises the question. If a beast that slept inside a volcano can identify him that fast, how have 12 gods gone this long without noticing? Because nobody up there has noticed. Not yet. Then the series does something it almost never does. It lets him be sincere. Benna sits packed and terrified at Sandermain, convinced she's disappointed her master and become a burden. He tells her to go visit her people and to learn to wield the Valkyrie power properly and that she can come back. She thanks him for everything he did for her and says, "I will get stronger and be a useful ally when I come back." The flashback that follows is one hard fact per block territory. Behemoth and Yermangander, the ruler of the oceans, were familiars Diablo Volpir created himself to help fight the 12 gods. Before his final battle, he told Behemoth, "I will be back, so stay here and wait for me." Then he lost, and he was gone for 66,666 years. So Behemoth waited inside a volcano, and this is where a legend we already heard snaps shut. Back in Chapter 64, Siegfried told the story of a treacherous volcano and a beast inside it, with a warning that the beast waking up marks the beginning of the disastrous end. Turns out a mysterious elf offered the lonely beast sleep, in exchange for a promise to help the frontier one day. The world's doomsday prophecy was a friend setting an alarm clock. Black turns up alive too, and Behemoth loses it. "Holy, you were alive!" Yermangander is still unaccounted for but believed alive out there somewhere. 2 of the 3 war familiars he built to kill gods are back on the board, and one of them just got orders to look into Isis and escort Benna. The last stop is a shop called Ars Magna where he collects a meteorite relic, the fragment of Aeon. Then Madame Kyriel calls in her half of that soul contract. "Take me to the Shadow Realm." He opens the way himself. Opposition of light, darkness within the shadows, allow me to enter through the gateway. On the other side, something with burning eyes sees him and screams, "So you have returned after all this time, Diablo Volpir." Her name card reads Shadow Elemental Queen Burness, and Chapter 70 hands us the flashback this entire series has been keeping in its pocket. Eras ago, she wandered the human realm and found one human standing up against the 12 gods. She was impressed enough to tell him so. "You're a rare kind, I see a hero in you." Then he lost. The war has a name now, the Fourth Great War, and the page shows him standing alone in a field of his own fallen comrades. Burness hid him inside the Shadow Realm, out of reach of the god's sight, and let him use part of her dark world. That is where Diablo Volpir's dark mana came from, not talent, not a bloodline, a hiding place. That's the title of this whole block, and it's the best single fact in it. The power he plans to kill gods with was invented in the one room gods couldn't look into. He didn't build it to conquer anything. He built it because he'd already lost everything and needed somewhere to exist. So what happened to the rest of that war and to everyone in it? Present day, Burnus takes one look at him and says, "You look tiny and squishy." He explains it flat. "I didn't die, I was imprisoned away. When I woke up I was reincarnated in this body." He asks her to let someone else through and she warns him what waits on the other side. All you'll be able to see there is the illusion of the dead. Then the beat the whole fandom misreads. It isn't Jamie who walks in. Madame Kirill crosses the portal toward a boy in an orange hood saying, "I finally get to reunite with you, my son." Finn, the child she once told she'd be beside whenever he played the harmonica. Jamie doesn't follow and he doesn't comfort her. He just watches and lets her go with, "May you find peace in what awaits you there." There's a present waiting at the counter, a relic called the Staff of Avalon made with the magic stone found in Lake Talink, one of 6 forbidden wonders of the world. Her reason is short. "My son Finn was about your age when he passed. The soul lender gave the Dark Mage a weapon because he happened to be the size of her boy. 2 weeks later he arrives at the Magical Society. It's a city built as one enormous magic seal by the founding king of Seldom. Siegfried leaves to report to the Elders' Council, hands him a map and a magic tracker coin so he won't get lost, and walks off. That last part becomes funny about 90 seconds later. Because a girl in a school uniform grabs him. Anne Mayer, a student at Phoenix Academy, assumes the small boy standing alone must be a new student and drags him to orientation at a meal auditorium. He tries to correct her twice. She's already gone, and in the crowd a red-haired young man goes white. "Why you? Why the hell are you here?" That's Lennon Simon, second son of the Earl, and he's been having nightmares since their last meeting. He's rank 3 now, trained personally by his father, which is genuinely impressive and completely irrelevant, and the chapter knows it. Then Siegfried finds his lost charge, scolds him for wandering off, and says the wrong thing in public. Lord Jamie. Here's the channel's verdict on this block. He lost his only fight, inherited a secret from a grandfather he never met, and finally learned where his own power came from, and the answer was a favor from a queen who hid him. Now a whole academy is turning around to look at the greatest talent in the history of mankind. He wanted to be invisible. The gods aren't looking. Everyone else just started. We're compressing the whole Council of Elders into 3 beats, because only one thing in that room matters. The Magical Society's great conference room is already gossiping about him before he walks in. 3rd Elder Serfin Gerol calls the rumors exaggerated. 6th Elder Abelhart Beben mocks the fear of word for word off the page, a 10-year-old kid with much better magical affinity. Then the doors open. He introduces himself as Jamie Welton, the eldest son and heir to House Welton, at your service. 2nd Elder Marion Rinmel greets him like an old student, and the room puts a number on him out loud. He's at least a rank 6. That's the same rank the page gave him at 9, so nothing here walks backward. Offenzinger comes down through his own storm, one of only 2 rank 8 archmages in the kingdom. He offers a home, a private laboratory, a seat in the society. Then he replaces his own offer. 1 month as a temporary instructor at Phoenix Academy. The elders call it unanimous over the boy's objection, and the man who once terrified gods gets handed a class. Episode 72 is mostly a gag reel, so we're skipping the autograph mob and the frozen classroom. 2 beats carry real weight. He can't teach dark magic inside an academy, so he picks magical seals instead. His reason is this entire section in 1 sentence. He wants to go back to what he was before he created dark magic, when they called him the Mage of Infinity. The 2nd beat is 1 background balloon. A blue-haired girl turns to a classmate and says she didn't know he took Apophy's ex as well, Phineas. That's it. No music sting, no reaction panel. The drug plot that eats the rest of this block starts as a throwaway line in a homeroom scene. Next morning, a student yells that the Boogaman is coming. The instructor behind him answers, "Hamlin, if I hear that word one more time, I'll make sure you regret it." The Boogaman is Kerniak Azir, senior instructor of magical seals. He announces that the genius mage will temporarily take over his subject, then decides to demonstrate first as the senior. The lecture is real theory and the show does the work. Hexagram seals get built from sun, moon, and star symbols. Kerniak's rule is the load-bearing part. Once a seal is drawn, it's irrevocable. He looks at the boy's grid lines and sneers, "Please don't tell me you didn't even know the basics." "Who says I can't?" He snaps his fingers. The seal comes apart into its component symbols floating loose in the air. He rearranges them like tiles, then reassembles the whole thing standing up in 3 dimensions. The class calls it a discovery that will shake the entire academic association. He calls it relayering. Then the page does something it's only done a handful of times in 100 episodes. It stops, cuts to a splash of the dark-haired hooded figure and puts the credit in the caption. This magical perspective was established by Diablo Volpir, which earned him the moniker the Mage of Infinity. Now look at who that caption is for. It's for us. Not one person in that lecture hall hears it. Kerniak just stares and says he's never even heard of anything like this, that this child is indescribable. The biggest secret in the world gets printed on the page and nobody in the room can read it. Nobody up there has noticed either. Publicly, Kerniak downgrades the demonstration to entertainment and assigns homework. Privately, he clocks the one student who never lost focus. Afterward, that blue-haired girl brings her failed attempts to the boy instructor. She's been rebuilding the multi-compound seal from memory, and it keeps collapsing on her. He finds it in seconds. The moon symbols from two different seals are colliding. Remove the one that conflicts. She casts it and shouts that it worked. She replicated an advanced technique after seeing it once with no training in it, and Lennon Simon storms over demanding to know how she did that. He watches her and thinks there's no way nobody in the society has taken notice of her talent. Then he decides he has to speak to Siegfried about her. Hold that thought. A man whose entire plan runs on needing nobody just volunteered to go find a stranger a sponsor. The director's office? Elder Siegfried is turning a lantern-shaped artifact over in his hands, something he calls the Fragment of Aeon, and he admits he's still trying to figure out how to handle it. Park that. The show plants it, names it, and walks away without another word. Jamie shows him the seal the girl copied. Siegfried is floored, then explains the ugly part. The court funds the society, and the society won't invest in a mage without practical magical affinity. Her name is Anne Mayer. Unrivaled intelligence, almost no knack for casting, and she still trails Siegfried around calling him master. Siegfried grins and suggests the boy take her himself. An older apprentice under a younger master, he says that's such a beautiful story. Then he throws him out. And alone afterward, the refusal this whole block is built on finally gets its reason in a flashback with no date on it. Dark hair, blood on his face and on his fist, fire behind him. The caption is his own voice. The day I lost all of my apprentices to the 12 gods' treacherous scheme, he decided to end this fight once and for all by himself. Then comes the oath. Neither will I put my faith in someone else nor have anyone by my side again. So the gods didn't just seal him, they got to his students first, and he answered by deciding that company itself was the weakness. Every cold call he's made since he woke up in a crib traces back to that page. 1 week later, the practice arena runs a practical mana assessment, and the numbers are the beat. Lennon shatters the target with a lightning spell and scores 2,199. Phineas scores 860, a jump of 700 points from his last exam, and his eyes flash strangely mid-cast. Anne scores 247, same as last year. 3 numbers, 1 story. The boy with the famous surname wins, the boy on the drug leaps, and the smartest student in the building stalls in public. Then the episode ends on a photograph slipping out of Kerniak's book. A silver-haired woman with pointed ears. No name, no explanation, no follow-up. We're compressing the spar because it runs across 2 episodes and half of it is spell names being shouted. Here's what you need. Anne breaks down in a hallway and her own thought is the alarm bell. Should I have taken the supplement Phineas offered? He overhears every word of it. He notes she has nearly zero knack for magic and takes her seriously anyway. What worries him is the drive, and where drive like that ended up the last time he trusted it. So he walks into the blue tower to ask Rinmal for permission to pass on the mana breathing technique. Rinmal's price is a duel. Satisfy me first. One hard fact from that office before the spells start. Rinmal is building a wide area offensive war spell, and he says why out loud. Once this spell is completed, the war against Zenith and his followers will begin. A second elder is quietly arming for a war against a god, and he thinks the idea is his. Rinmal draws the Staff of Avalon and opens the Realm of Paradise, a pocket dimension he can duck into to dodge real attacks. Then he shows his actual magical perspective. Cognitive dissonance. Lightning, hailstorms, and a volcano rise around the boy and none of it exists. The spell is attacking his mind. Inside the illusion, he says it plainly. He can't use dark magic in there. That's a rule of the room, not a loss of power, and what he finds instead is better than brute force. He drains the mana Rinmal is spending and pours it straight into his own 1,000 seas. Then he builds a leviathan of water out of it. Sit with that move for a second. He doesn't beat a rank 8 Archmage with a bigger spell. He turns the Archmage into his fuel supply, and on the way out his sword accidentally channels a fragment of Rinmel's own magical perspective, which is the part that genuinely rattles the old man. Rinmel ends the spar, says the boy has certainly done enough, and grants the permission. That night he stands at a window with a colleague named Raymond, watching the boy's tower. They ask each other whether he really is human. Then Raymond floats the idea that he was deliberately created by a higher being for a purpose. Rinmel shuts the conversation down, wary of being overheard, and that theory lands somewhere specific. It rhymes with the prophecy attached to the Bell bloodline that this series planted long before the Academy existed. 2 Archmages are circling the truth and approaching it from completely the wrong side. Same night, someone bangs on his door. It's Lennon Simon, who heard Anne might be accepted and wants in. He gets a magic smack for his manners. And it's Mr. Jamie, by the way, don't you dare disrespect your instructor. Then the real question: does Earl Simon know? Lennon hasn't asked and gets turned away crying. He goes and does the work instead. I can't just sit idly by until Anne surpasses me as a mage. Earl Simon hears his once stuck-up son ask permission to study under a 10-year-old and answers in 2 words, "I approve." Then he warns him not to tarnish House Simon. Then the show turns cold. In an alley behind the Magical Society, an instructor who had been pushing a drug called Apophis among students begs for one more bottle. A man in a green hood beats him to death for it. The line thrown over the body is the theme of the whole arc. And you call yourself an instructor of magic? The Magical Society must be rotten to its core. A second figure in a blue hood with golden eyes says one word: enough, then burns the body with green fire and mutters, "What a classless fool." 20 pages later, that same green hood introduces himself with a grin. "Please call me Ashtor, manager of Trinity's lab." Same silver braid, same fangs, same red mark across the eye. Next morning at the academy, Mr. Silver is absent without notice and Ms. Sophia covers his class. "Here's where we stay honest with you." The page never names the man in the alley, and Mr. Silver is only ever called missing. We're keeping those 2 threads apart until the page joins them itself. Anne and Lennon corner him about the apprenticeship. "Neither of you are my apprentice yet," he tells them, and sets a test at his place after school with no second chance. Then Kerniak walks up behind him unnoticed, which almost nobody manages, and tells him to reconsider Anne. He'd hate to see a great talent go down the drain. Remember that sentence. Elsewhere, Phineas shrugs off a friend's warning and calls Apophis X a miraculous supplement, an opportunity of a lifetime. A classmate named Irving, who claims to be Mr. Silver's favorite student, walks him in as a VIP guest at Trinity's lab. The boy whose score jumped 700 points just strolled into the building that makes the drug. The apprenticeship test is the best structural idea in the block. He teaches them the mana breathing technique using the entire body, the one Rinmel created, and orders them to master it by today. If they can't, they can always go back. Then he summons the sentient Warhammer Filion and opens a door. The pocket dimension runs on 2 things: Gremia, which lets him build any structure out of imagination, and the staff that controls the flow of time inside it. 24 hours in there equals 12 hours outside. Small craft note from us: the page never once shows that staff changing hands, so we describe it by what it does. Inside, the split is clean. Anne grasps the theory almost instantly and says so. Her problem is a small mana core, and widening one hurts. Her family is House Mayor, a minor house whose lord is only a rank 4, and she's heard people call them not very useful to society. She pushes past the safe limit anyway. She tells herself this is the only way she can bring glory to her house. Lennon is her mirror image. He can't hold the concept in his head at all, and then his hands understand it, and late that night he finally breaks mana into smaller particles, 2 opposite failures, 1 identical stubbornness. Meanwhile, Ashtor unveils a new batch of Apophis, twice as potent, and gifts Phineas a free vial of the tier above that. Phineas asks straight out about side effects. He's told the dizziness is only his mana core expanding, which the anatomy panel in that same episode quietly contradicts. Then a hooded visitor with golden eyes slices his cigarette with a green blade. Ashtor calls the visitor Mary. Mary says, "I'm here for blood." After the scuffle, Ashtor files Mary as skilled but too unpredictable and decides to report it to the teacher once he returns. There's a professor in this organization and there's a teacher, and the page won't say whether that's one person or 2. At the 24-hour mark, he snaps his fingers, ends the test, and delivers his verdict to Anne Mayer and Lennon Simon. Failed. It's a bluff. The test was never the technique, it was the wanting, and both of them wanted it enough. He accepts them and hands over 2 matching purple pendants to be worn at all times. Stop and look at what just happened. The man who swore never to have anyone by his side again just took 2. He did it for a girl with no casting talent and a loud boy who cried on his doorstep. Nobody forced him. He broke his own oath quietly for 2 teenagers who have no idea what he is. In a hidden room, an operative reports to the professor through a communication orb and hears that more test subjects are coming. Then Kerniak and Mary settle on a target. Get our hands on Anne as soon as possible. Kerniak goes quiet about it and later sits alone reading her file, which is the first crack in him. At school, the pendant draws a crowd and Phineas gets confronted about Apophis' ex. Enough is enough, he snaps. 6 years of weak talent, and now the girl beside him studies under the prodigy while he's told to drop the only thing that ever worked. MS. Sophia is waiting in the hallway with another vial. She invites him to bring Anne to a special lecture at Trinity's lab. Her private thought is the ugliest line in the episode. The experiment subjects will meet their demise soon, and a dead student would start the director's investigation. She knows exactly what she's handing him. The episode closes in a lab over dead trial animals with a promise that this drug will reshape the entire world. Episode 80 then pays every seed at once, so we're slowing down. Phineas apologizes to Anne and invites her along. The organization argues about the risk of grabbing her and Kerniak shuts it down himself. We're in too deep in this project. Then a line worth writing down. Apophis is at its most stable stage yet because the professor removed most of the side effects using purer ingredients supplied to them. Supplied by whom? A back-alley lab that forces monocores open does not stumble into purer ingredients. Somebody upstream is bankrolling this, and the page keeps that name in its pocket. Anne thanks Mr. Kerniak for a private lecture, warm and completely sincere, and his own thought is that she doesn't deserve that. His handlers notice the hesitation. They put Ashtor on standby, telling him he may have to prove his worth after all. Siegfried then summons Jamie in private, and this is the investigation beat. Mr. Silver had been meeting struggling Class Beta students before he vanished. Those same students whose grades improved out of nowhere have all stopped attending class. Jamie recognizes the shape of it instantly because he watched Phineas jump 700 points in one exam. Asked to look into it quietly, he remembers what he built into those pendants. They warn him if either apprentice is in danger. And on that same page the pendant flares. 2 episodes of setup cashed in for 1 flash of blue light, and the show spends it at the exact moment it matters. Cut to the lecture. MS. Sophia is selling Apophis as the road that lets untalented mages walk the path of an archmage. Anne challenges her in front of everyone, then Phineas collapses mid-room from the reaction while Sophia keeps right on talking. Apophis is the game changer. This drug is salvation. And then Sophia hints that a non-human being could carry the drug's cost in humanity's place. Anne, startled, asks out loud whether a god is involved. That's a schoolroom argument brushing the exact question this whole video runs on. Nobody in that room understands what they just said, and the girl who said it is 10 steps from being taken. Before anyone answers, Mary seizes her, mocks her lack of talent, and tries to make her drink it. Kerniak comes through the door shouting, "Let go of Anne, Mary." The 2 operatives tear into each other, his reduction against her attack, allies until about 4 seconds ago. Then Anne screams, "Behind you." A winged silhouette drops on Kerniak from above and the episode ends before the face turns. The page hides it, so we're hiding it too, but look at what the show just built. The traitor in this conspiracy turned because a student thanked him for a lecture and something with wings answered a pendant. Here's the channel's verdict on this block. He spent an entire flashback swearing he'd never have anyone at his side again, then handed out 2 pendants in a classroom. The gods took his apprentices from him the first time. This time he picked them himself in public while saying his old epithet out loud. Nobody up there has noticed. Somebody down here just started collecting. That winged silhouette at the end of the last episode was him. Episode 81 opens on the Trinity manager, Ashtor, standing over Kerniak Azir while the page screams the instructor's name. Purple hair, brown coat, face down on the floor. 10 episodes of classroom politics just ended, and the academy arc finally shows what it was building. Ashtor corners 2 students in a dark hall. Phineas Batik recognizes him instantly and stammers, "Mr. Manager?" Same man who ran Trinity's lab in episode 77. He calls Kerniak a complete failure and promises the children they're next. Villainy in this series has an org chart, and the org chart is somehow scarier than the sword. Then MS, Sophia takes hold of Anne Mayer and tells her to be a good girl, promising she'll become a wonderful mage. We're not lingering here. An adult is forcing a drug on a student, the page plays it as horror and it gets cut short. A door blows open. How dare you lay a finger on my apprentice? He walks in wrapped in blue lightning and drops Sophia with one blast. No incantation, no windup. Then he opens Gremia and pushes Anne and Phineas into the pocket dimension he's owned since episode 52. Remember those pendants he handed the two of them in the last block? This is exactly what they were for. Next he calls Ryza out of a summoning circle and Ryza takes Ashtar apart in a straight duel. Jamie's order is the interesting part, not kill him, capture him. Yeah, why don't you try training him? Ryza answers, if you insist, sir. He collects the beaten Kerniak too, apologizes and parks him in Gremia, noting it was about time Ryza and Azard got a new buddy. Off-panel, Ashtar screams that he refuses, nobody asked. Sophia wakes up under Jamie's control. Open your eyes, my faithful servant. She answers, I am at your service, master. Then the payload word for word off the page. My name is Mary Valentine, I am an executive of the organization called Trinity. His reply is flat, so Sophia was just an alias. She starts choking the second she reaches the word demon. Somebody wired an encryption spell into her to kill exactly that sentence. So he raises the shell of absolute immunity, one of the 3 divine artifacts he made himself, and strips the gag off her. He built that thing to survive gods, he's using it as a lockpick on a non-disclosure agreement. She keeps talking. Trinity made a pact with a demon to offset what Apophis does. We're compressing the rest of the interrogation because only 3 things in it matter. Trinity answers to someone in service of the demon of vengeance. Only a titled demon lord could balance those side effects, and Ashtar killed the suppliers, including a man called Silver. He decrypts her warded crystal ball, concludes a high-ranking magical society mage has to be inside this, and sends her home as his informant. Episode 82 then chains up Kerniak. Jamie rips something out of the man's forehead and the page labels it a chip of binding. You were a homunculus. The footnote is blunt, artificially made humanoid creatures. The boogaman the students whispered about was somebody's manufactured tool. Kerniak says if he must pay for that with his death, so be it. Jamie snaps back, death won't resolve anything. Then a crack. I removed the chip of binding from you. You don't have to live as a loyal dog to the third elder anymore. Think of it as an expression of gratitude for saving my apprentice. Hold that thought because that's a redemption being planted. Why does the mage who swore off apprentices keep paying debts to the people who guard them? Meanwhile, in a private lab, third elder Serphin Gerald has lost contact with all 3 of his people and is loading a syringe of Apophis for himself. He's the Secretary of Education. He runs the council that oversees the school, and he's dosing himself with the thing killing his students. Back at the academy, Jamie and Director Siegfried go down the list of elders. The royal court mages tied to the third elder are out, and even Marquess Rinmal can't be assumed safe. Then, in a hallway after hours, the friendly staffer who kept asking about Sophia gets asked about contacting Mr. Silver. Jamie puts the pieces together and calls him teacher. The light green hair, the cream coat, the warm smile. That's Jevlin Cutter, the director assistant, and he drops the whole act in one panel and lights up crimson. Keep those 2 straight in your head. Jevlin and the third elder are 2 different men, and the arc stands them on the same page on purpose. Episode 83 opens out of order and we're skipping the shuffle. A red space isolation spell seals the grounds. Siegfried gets locked inside an ancient seal and Jevlin has the nerve to explain it to him politely. You seem troubled, so allow me to explain, Director. It's a powerful seal we obtained from a mysterious land in the Far East. The episode also cuts to Kerniak remembering Anne. He tells her she's a genius with a bright future and confesses a grave sin he has been carrying for years. Then, I'm afraid I'm out of time. The page is buying a death 2 episodes early. Note that because it matters soon. Serphin Gerald arrives loud. Somebody snaps that Jevlin has disappointed him big time and fires off a detonation. Jamie greets him as third elder, and the man barks that he'll make the boy eat dust. From a 10-year-old he gets called a pathetic old geezer who reached for an illegal substance to cover his own incompetence. Now the hard fact of this block. The demonic pact needs quality sacrifices, meaning mages with expanded mana cores. Apophis was never about making mages, it was about fattening offerings. Jamie asks it out loud. Are you trying to summon a demon lord? And the perfect cover for all of it, the faithful of Zenith used as a screen without knowing it. The god who sealed him is currently unpaid security for a cult growing sacrifices inside a school. Jamie calls Leviathan and the third elder is suddenly fighting one-handed. The page also warns that it's only a matter of time until the seventh elder breaks that seal. The episode ends on a splash of his Dark Mage aspect, hair gone pale, purple blade coming down. Episode 84 is called Dominion of Darkness, and it earns the title in about 4 pages. He casts Doom, a spell that crushes the soul and locks the body in place, then draws a sword made of dark magic. The child face is gone. What's standing in that courtyard is the thing the 12 chained. They trade named work at speed, 1000 Cs against light of oxidation, Welton style number 8 on top. Jamie mocks the entire molecular school of magic as more related to dust than to molecules. Then Leviathan's jaws close on the elder's face and the line lands cold. Leviathan will devour your envy along with your body. A flashback labeled Phoenix Academy only moments ago fills the gap. Jevlin murdered an instructor named Mr. Hebben, then ambushed Jamie and ran him through from behind, so he's been fighting this entire battle already wounded. He says the name out loud. So it was you that made the pact with the demon, Jevlin. And then he opens the ground. Neblo's undead legion comes up in organized divisions across Academy soil, and Azard kneels in front of him and announces himself as Lord Commander. Neblo told him to look the part. That's the humor of this series in one panel. A necromantic war host, and one of them is worried about his job title. Cut to an empty classroom where a red-haired student notices Anne never showed up. That's Lennon Simon, and the pendant Jamie gave him is glowing. He says Mr. Jamie is in danger and he runs. 2 blocks ago those pendants were a sentimental gesture. Here the reason help arrives at all. The third elder shreds the skeletons faster than they can advance, so Jamie pulls the legion back and takes him alone. Apophis has pushed the old man past most rank 6 mages. Jamie answers with Welton style number 7, thunderous slash stacked with hovering darkness, straight into the enemy's light of obliteration. Then Leviathan eats it. The whole attack swallowed, powered by gluttony. That entity has been circling this story since the Grimoire vision back in episode 48, and this is the first time we see what feeds it. Cornered, the third elder swears he'll live even if it costs him his soul to the demon lord, and detonates everything he has. Jamie's answer is his second special power. Blaze, a blinding purple and white eruption that he pays for with his own life force, and the chapter cuts out mid-explosion. Here's the channel's read. How many mages would spend their own life force to win a school fight? He's 10 and he doesn't hesitate. Nobody up there has noticed. Episode 85 opens inside a memory, and this is the biggest piece of information in the block. He's Diablo Volpir again, surrounded by creatures born out of dark magic, and there's a purple blade in his own hand. His own thought stops on it. God killer! He's remembering the third artifact, he hasn't found it. The memory keeps going. The ancient mage roars that he will never forgive them and releases a spell the page calls the very source of Leviathan's power. That's Blaze. The thing he threw at an elder is a scrap of the weapon he used on gods, rebuilt inside a child's body. Back in the present, his opponent is rattled. How is my magic harnessed in your blade? This makes no sense. That's the Blade of Convergence, a technique that swallows enemy magic and hands it back. The credit Jamie gives is almost polite. I made the breakthrough thanks to you. He ends the duel with 2 words, go in peace. Elsewhere, Kerniak makes his choice. He plants himself in front of Jevlin and shouts that he will never let him crush the dreams of the students. Cube Breaker. He takes the incoming hit on purpose because he had no intention of avoiding it. Then he recognizes the man arriving behind him. I'll entrust the rest in your capable hands. That man is Siegfried, free of the seal and in a mood. He catches Jevlin mid-escape and tells him he won't be allowed to die peacefully. The friendly blonde director of a magic school has a whole basement in him. Kerniak doesn't survive the day. A manufactured man built out of borrowed envy chose how he'd finish, and he chose the students. Then Lichter Simon walks in and says the quiet part. Lennon told me you might be in danger. Siegfried asks how Jamie reached rank 7 in the short stretch he was away, which is the page confirming the jump out loud. Simon has no patience for the small talk. A demon is involved, and a powerful one. A pillar of red erupts across the grounds. Jevlin isn't a man anymore. Jamie casts Hand of Ifrit without an incantation, and Simon answers with Flame Emperor, his own magical perspective, absolute command over every flame nearby. That's where the Red Lotus mage name came from. Someone shouts it plainly. So this is the magical perspective of the 8th elder. And then Jamie takes the fire, not borrows it, takes it out of an elder's hands and finishes the demon with 1 word. Incinerate. Here's the verdict on this block. He fought in the open in his true aspect in front of the leadership of the magical society. Somebody is going to ask him what he is. He's out of excuses and he isn't slowing down. Episode 86 opens in the ash. Simon looks at what's left and says it word for word off the page. You just never cease to amaze me, Jamie. Nice moment. It lasts about 4 panels because something in those embers is still moving and it was never impressed. A bigger demon rises out of the fire and drains the last of Javelin. You've done well, pathetic worm. Hand over your body before you die. Then he turns to Jamie's group. I'll take care of the rest from here. Name card, Demon Earl Belius, half-demon, half-dragon, servant of the Demon Lord of Vengeance, ranked above Lyrda the Demon Baron. Across the city, a search party finds Kerniak Azir's body. He's an instructor at Phoenix Academy and a pupil of the Third Elder. Abelhart Beben, the Sixth Elder, says it flat out that old bastard Serfin sacrificed him to summon a demon. The mustached man beside her asks her to refrain from making assumptions. She's guessing, and the page never confirms she's right. Marquess Rinmal takes command and orders the city protected. He also floats a phrase nobody wants to hear, that they may have to activate the dimension breaker if this goes wrong. Then Jamie faces Belius in the open and thinks the quiet part. A demon earl, it's as if I'm facing a dragon. Stoutness absorbs every physical attack and it still isn't enough, so he makes the choice this whole block is built on. He warns the 2 elders beside him, whatever you see, please keep it to yourselves, and lets the dark mana out. One of them starts the sentence. This is, the other finishes it. Yeah, dark magic. And Simon, calm as a man ordering lunch, adds, you have some explaining to do, Welton boy. We're compressing the rest of the brawl because the brawl isn't the point. Vortex of Remittance, a golden flare pinning the demon down, and Void Sever enhanced by Stoutness fused into Blade of Convergence, demonic dragon aura. Belius gets up bigger and breathes fire at all 3 of them. Here's the thing about episode 86. He wins the exchange and loses the secret. 2 elders of the magical society now hold the one piece of information that the last 30 episodes existed to protect. How long do you think a thing like that stays inside 2 skulls? Episode 87 opens with that breath still in the air. Somebody shouts 7th Elder now, and Siegfried lays down space layering while Simon burns the sky with Red Lotus Flaming Ray. Then the call, Lord Jamie, are you ready yet? And Jamie answers with something we have not seen once in 86 episodes. Ocean of Chaos? It isn't a projectile, it's terrain. He converts the battlefield into his own domain, and Belius, the half-demon dragon who was built to be this arc's villain, drowns inside it. That should be the climax of the episode. It's the first 5 pages. Because something else comes through the gate. Belius drops to his knees, calls it your demonic majesty, and begs, what if the 12 gods detect your presence in the earthly realm? The answer is move aside, Belius, and the demon earl is killed by his own lord in one motion. Then the newcomer says, close the gate. Title card, Demon of Vengeance. Watch what that gesture does to the math. Belius survived Jamie's strongest combined attack. His master ends him for talking out of turn. The elders watching from a distance call the intruder a demon earl, at least, if not stronger. They credit the sealed battlefield to the 7th Elder's doing and send word for Luke and able to ready a weapon. Jamie walks up to a demon lord in a child's body and demands, I asked if you were a demon lord. He gets flattened for it, hold on to the detail he drops while falling. His own dark mana hides a demonic presence from the gods, and he wonders why Peyro isn't answering. Nobody up there has noticed, not even now. Then the demon sees his eyes and loses composure. How do you have the same purple eyes as he? Jamie throws the same question back inverted. How can a vile and hideous demon like you be in possession of my unique dark power that I created with my own hands? 2 beings screaming about the same inheritance, neither one guessing yet. He loses, and not narrowly. A clawed hand the size of a house pins the child body down, blood on his mouth. The voice above promises to drag him to the underworld to serve the demon of vengeance for all eternity. This is the second clean loss of the run after Darius. It isn't a step backward, it's the page drawing the ceiling. And then, pinned and beaten, he places the voice. No way, Trika, is that you? The page cuts 66,666 years back to the hills of Lampert, and this is a top 3 payoff in the whole video. A human warrior is dying on that hill. The man kneeling beside him is Diablo Volpir with dark hair and no hood, a version of him we have never seen drawn before. The warrior begs, reanimate me as an undead, so please lead me and the rest of the mankind, please don't abandon us. And Diablo grants it. I permit you to serve me faithfully as a loyal undead knight. The warrior's last human words are "Thank you, Diablo." Cut back to armored horns and purple aura, and the demon lord who was crushing a 10-year-old whispers, "Is that really you, your lordship?" The most dangerous thing on the continent just found out it has been searching for its own boss. Episode 88 is memory, so we're compressing it into one pass. Trika asks, "Is it really you, your lordship?" And Jaime leads with the apology. "I am so sorry, Trika, for making you wait this long." Then Trika opens his memories by touch and we get the night before the sealing. Diablo ordered every spirit beast and every undead he owned to disband. Trika refused. "I will stay by your side until the very end, your lordship." So Diablo handed him one last mission and sent him away, and the memory shows what that felt like from inside. Was I not good enough for him? He lands in the underworld alone. A century of agony converting absorbed demonic energy into dark mana, which is the only reason a conjured being lasted down there at all. He claws his way up to Demon Earl. Then word reaches him that the 12 gods are erasing Diablo's records from history, and he takes a new name. I must take vengeance. That's where the title comes from. He grows strong enough to threaten the traditional hierarchy of 5 demon lords, all of it for a man he believes is dead. In the present, Jaime bows to him, which this character does not do, and Trika goes to one knee. "I will surely stay by your side until the very end this time around, your lordship." Jaime states the goal plainly: slay the 12 gods, and then he hands us the most useful number in this stretch, word for word off the page. "It's only been 10 years since my reincarnation and less than 1 year since I began training seriously to regain my powers. Rank 7, under 12 months of real training." The barrier shatters and he drops out of it as an ordinary mint-haired kid. "I feel much better." Outside, a crowd is furious about the wreckage. What kind of director destroys his own school? Siegfried, who is the director, answers, "Talk to my insurance company, please." 3 days later, Jaime wakes in the infirmary and Siegfried casts a soundproofing spell. "I think I'm ready to hear your explanation. Just what in the world was that mana?" And for the first time in 89 episodes, Jaime doesn't lie. He says it's sitting up in a hospital gown. "I am the reincarnation of Diablo Volpir, the first Dark Mage. No hood, no aura, no army, just a boy handing a stranger the secret 12 gods don't have." What sells the scene is Siegfried's reaction. He doesn't laugh. He runs the evidence in his head: impossible talent in magic and in swordsmanship, and a small child who killed bandits without a flicker of remorse. His conclusion is that the claim makes absolute sense. That's the quiet horror of it. Everything already fit. Then Jaime offers to show instead of explain. He takes Siegfried's hand, opens a violet circle, and lets another human being walk into his memory. This is the only place in 100 episodes where we watch the sealing from inside. Everything the opening of this video promised gets paid right here. A shining army descends on winged steeds. Their leader gets a name card of his own. God of War and Peace, Zenith, long dark hair, golden halo, white and gold robes. He mocks Diablo for hiding. And Diablo, wrapped in purple, tells him exactly why he came back: to take back what's ours and restore dignity to mankind. He attacks a god directly. Zenith's order is to take him alive and break him first, and the order works. Bloodied, surrounded, clearly losing, Diablo Volpir starts laughing. "Go ahead, I dare you to seal me away," and the 12 answer him in one voice. "We will look forward to that day, Diablo Volpir." Remember that line from the first minute of this video, the one they said as the chains closed? This is the other side of it. His last word is no, and the seal cuts it in half. 66,666 years begin on that scream. Back in the room, Siegfried gets the context. In that era, humanity was enslaved by the 12 gods, and the part that lands hardest is the claim about now. Humans are still fenced in and watched over by gods and dragons today in the present. Siegfried doesn't argue, he concedes it grimly, which tells you he had already suspected it. Then the door opens for Lichter Simon, the 8th elder, with his son Lennon and Anne behind him, and Simon has receipts. A decade ago his faction sent an expedition into Capri Cave, one of the 6 forbidden wonders of the world. It failed. It also came back with the remains of an ancient superweapon called the Ark, dug out of a site labeled Ark Factory. Read what that implies. Humans built a machine like that, and humans once ruled over the dragons, the elves, and the land until the Ark was destroyed in the 4th Great War. Simon has been sitting on physical proof of an erased era. He never had a witness. Now there's a 10-year-old in front of him who was there. So Simon says the thing Jaime has spent the entire video dodging. "You are the chosen one." And the closing panel isn't triumphant at all. It's a boy in a hospital bed gripping his bedsheet, deeply uncomfortable. He didn't come back to be anybody's messiah. Episode 90, and he makes it formal. I am Diablo Volpir. I was once the leader of the resistance forces to liberate the humans. After I was left all alone, I worked on the power to slay the gods and created dark magic. Simon is shaking, so Jamie shows him the memory too, and all Simon manages is, did this really happen in the past? Then the 8th elder of the magical society kneels to a 10-year-old and calls him king of the mankind. The reason he gives is that this boy fought valiantly all alone until the very moment he suffered crushing defeat. Jamie refuses the title on the spot. He asks for quiet support and to be treated exactly the same as before. That refusal is the most in-character move of the block. Simon draws one more line worth noting. His group is not the Frontier. He calls the Frontier a multidiverse organization with an unclear purpose, no better than terrorists while it hides its motives. His own people, he says, gathered for the future of mankind and to unravel the mysteries of the world. We're compressing 3 months of hospital time into one paragraph. Paladins sweep up everyone tied to Apophis, the illegal drug at the center of all this. Trika gets quiet credit for drawing the demonic energy out of the victims and saving some of them. Serpent Geralt is declared an enemy of mankind and his house is disbanded. And Siegfried holds a small funeral for Kerniak. The page says his last-minute repentance and sacrifice to protect the students were recognized. A manufactured man built to be somebody's tool gets a headstone with his name on it. Then good news spreads through the magical society. At age 10, Jamie Welton is hailed as the greatest talent in the history of mankind. The palace makes it official, Archmage and temporary elder of the magical society. A royal decree summons Jamie Welton to the royal palace of Scadium in the royal capital Frevia at 12 noon 2 days from today. He's thrilled about it, obviously. Then Siegfried announces he'll be tagging along and Jamie's answer is, that's even worse. Here's the channel's verdict on this block. He told the truth twice on purpose and both listeners knelt instead of running. That's the win, and it's also the leak. The secret that kept him alive for 10 years now sits in 2 elders and 1 demon lord, and the 12 still haven't looked down. How long does that hold? It holds for exactly 1 royal decree. A messenger finds him at the magical society and makes him kneel. There's an ordination ceremony waiting in the royal capital Frevia 2 days out. We're compressing the whole political chapter around it because the faction feud never pays off inside this cut. One thing in it matters, and it's a weather report. 5th elder Luke Prezel pours him a commoner drink and maps the 3 factions for him. Jamie calls the whole feud a triviality, which nearly earns him a mind spell from the 6th elder. Then he gives them the forecast word for word off the page. A huge storm is going to sweep across the continents very shortly. Hold on to that sentence. The same mouth takes the 3rd elder's chair by the end of this section. Then the story does something it almost never does. It goes home. In Frevia, his mother reaches him first, running across the plaza in tears, calling him my puppy. Sarah announces that she hates her brother, then admits in private that she missed him. Over tea, his father says the quiet thing out loud. There were times when I had hoped for you to be more ordinary. Think about what that line costs. Argano is apologizing to a being who ruled the dark for tens of thousands of years. He thinks he's apologizing to a 10-year-old. The family loves a child who doesn't exist, and the show refuses to close that gap. It's the warmest scene in the block, and it's built entirely out of dramatic irony. Court comes next, and we're compressing most of it. 2 names you need. That night at a fountain he meets a frail girl who snuck out of the palace. Her guard reveals her as Isabel P. Freedmore, Princess of Seldom. At the ceremony, a spearman called the King's Spear, Sir Albert, mocks Lord Ballet in front of the entire crowd. He taunts Jamie's father too, floating a rumor that he lost to the swordmaster Gastel. Argano kills the rumor in 1 line, he couldn't fend off 10 swings of my sword. Then King Fontenold K. Freedmore takes the throne, the crowd hears the titles and Jamie kneels. Savior of Apton, chosen of the goddess Pero, Archmage at 10. Here's why we slow down for a ceremony. The king hands him a title, and the title is a key. Jamie is ordained the 11th official master of the great kingdom of Seldom. He answers, I humbly and graciously accept the honor, my liege. Every honor in this story turns out to be a lockpick, and he already knows which door. Because a master of Seldom moves through the kingdom as he pleases, and an archmage of Seldom is allowed to wear the crown of omniscience exactly once. He's planning the request at his own party while nobles swarm him. His parents joke nearby that they can't treat an archmage like a helpless child. He says he wants the tiniest clue. Guess what the crown gives him instead. Meanwhile, the show pays a debt from way back. On the southern continent of Brion, Blacer walks down into a catacomb called the Abyss. In the deepest cell sits Cleon, the blade of Zenith, chained for a bit more than 6 months. Remember the swordsman who cut down Archbishop Sephira for his god? He's been rotting down there ever since. Blacer delivers the news like a punchline. The boy from Seldom is being ordained an Archmage at 10, and it was that boy's work that stopped the Order of the Faith in Zenith from marching on the northern continent with its allies. Cleon throws himself at the bars asking for a rematch, and a fire spell shuts him up. A holy war got cancelled and the swordsman learned it through iron bars. Back at the palace, Jaime slips into the garden and finds hostility waiting for him. Sir Albert stands there with a blade and asks how his father would take news of his death. Jaime has already drawn a circle under the man's boot, and it ignites mid-sentence. 10 years old, and the trap was set before the threat finished talking. The one who ends it is not the princess. It's the old swordsman guarding her, Sir Tarek's fan, who cracks the stone with his staff and calls both of them pipsqueaks. His green energy blade goes to Albert's throat, not Jaime's, and Jaime's private read on the old man is the scariest line in the scene. He's definitely even superior to Cleon, the blade of Zenith. That's the boy measuring a bodyguard, not a crowd praising the boy. Get it backwards and you inflate a protagonist who doesn't need it. This series keeps putting grown adults above him on purpose, 95 episodes deep, and that's exactly why the power curve still means something here. The rest is aftermath, so we're compressing again. His grandfather visits, remembers his late wife Tina, and warns him that fame buys enemies faster than allies. Never ever underestimate the evilness of the people. The page cuts to gray on that line. A chained figure from the life before being screamed at by something wearing a golden halo. Humans are absolute garbage and unworthy of any mercy. That's the accusation. The answer, given while restrained and bleeding, is the thesis of this entire character, because the sins of the humans must be judged by humans and not others. The most feared Dark Mage in recorded history was partly sealed for defending the species that later forgot he existed. Then a small, heavy thing lands. His grandfather on the Welton side is dead, and Argano hands him a parchment left behind before he passed. It's the secret of the Pinnacle Sword, the technique that made Chervil Welton a grandmaster in secret. Jaime tells his father to destroy it. If no one is going to learn it, it is better to be destroyed. A family's greatest inheritance goes to ash, and he still cries at the warp terminal. Now the biggest world reveal in 100 episodes. It starts as a nightmare he can't shake off. A voice underwater keeps begging him to come night after night for a full week. He wakes and finds a black puddle on his floor with the crown of omniscience showing inside it. Someone has meddled in my subconscious realm. At the central tower, the council has a mess to manage. The first elder stepped down as leader of the royal court mages, taking responsibility for the third elder's treachery. They address Jaime as the newly appointed third elder and hand him the extra workload. Then they walk him down to the vault on the bottommost floor and leave him there alone. He puts the crown on and gets pulled somewhere else entirely. A man in a golden thorn crown is waiting, face painted like a skull. I am Garvalidin, the first ruler. He calls himself the forefather of the current world and the crown of omniscience itself. He's been waiting for the one with the highest rate of synchronization. Then he replays his own memory and the map of this world changes shape. He was an outsider among early humans whose strange magic got him worshipped as a god. He ruled through puppet emperors for more than 1,000 years. When the incompetent ones let it rot, the empire broke into 5 continents: Albia, Arisha, Harran, Kariron, Brion. Sit with that for a second. Every border on this map is the scar of one man's collapse. That's when the 12 orders of the gods rose to prominence. They appeared out of nowhere and took him down, and he ran through the ages by changing shape until he hid himself inside a crown. Even the first king of Seldom wore it and never unlocked what was inside. Jaime asks the obvious question, and it's the sharpest move in the episode. Why would gods bother dethroning their own puppet? Then he answers it himself out loud. Garv was handed a mission and a power, then stripped of everything after one grave offense. He calls him an entirely different species of human, a parasitic sort from a world more than 10,000 years back. Being read that precisely is what breaks the old man. He calls Jaime an insolent maggot and lashes out. Shut your damn mouth and give me your body. And here's the hinge of the final 10 episodes. Jaime parries with Dark Mana and the first ruler freezes mid-strike. It's the Dark Mana, but how did he even come in possession of my power? Sit with that reversal. For 96 episodes he's been the only Dark Mage in any room. Now a thing older than every kingdom on that map looks at his magic and calls it stolen goods. Nobody up there has noticed him. Something else just did, and it recognized the signature on sight. 97 answers the question and the answer beats the question. Garv's flashback opens on the end of a world. He alone survived a world reset performed by the 12 gods with every living thing turned to dust. Wandering the aftermath, he swallowed a gem housing phenomenal power and dark energy woke up inside him. A red-haired god found him and called him a rat. The dark energy fought back on its own without being aimed. Then the leader of the gods stepped in, renamed him Garv Illidan and handed him a world to rule. He'd scream about the ending later, but I was abandoned. About 500 years back he made his second bargain with the first king of the kingdom of Seldom. He'd serve the new kingdom until a mage with the highest rate of synchronization appeared. The offer was never advice and it was never loyalty. He wanted a body to survive the next reset in. Jaime was the vacancy he'd been advertising for. The fight runs the way it has to against a body that can't be permanently damaged. Chain spell, Infinity Blade, Power of Darkness, Mist Explosion. A finishing convergence strike and Garv gets back up taunting him, so Jaime stops trying to break the thing. He baits it into running, then locks it down with imprisonment spell, Realm of Deprivation. Then the interrogation delivers the twist that reframes the whole arc. That power of darkness Garv carried since the reset was never his. It's a lost fragment of Diablo Volpir's own power from more than 60,000 years ago picked up by pure accident. You're nothing but a fake. I am not a fake. He walks out with the crown gone and gives the elders nothing. I happened across a coincidental gain. 98 is the season climax and it lands in 4 moves. Move 1 rewinds 10 minutes inside the realm of deprivation. Garv asks how anyone stays sane through isolation like that. Jaime tells him the truth that he's been completely mad the entire time and only learned not to be eaten by it. Then he casts Crystallize. I refuse, I don't want to die yet. The first ruler cracks apart mid-sentence and what's left is one small glowing crystal. Ages of hiding inside a national treasure ended with a beggar's line. This show is very good at making immortals sound small at exactly the right moment. Move 2 belongs to a bat. Jaime is still weighing whether to absorb the extract when Black snatches it and swallows the thing whole. He warns him there's a limit to how much dark mana it could handle. Too late. Black goes up in a purple blast and comes down wearing huge white feathered wings. Light created from extreme darkness. That's the caption and the episode is called Mystic Light. The familiar he built with his own hands back in Chapter 3 just did something he cannot explain. How is this even possible? The oldest Dark Mage alive is standing there asking the exact question the audience is asking. Move 3 is the ugliest thing he's ever done to himself. He sees an opening and takes the new power by force. Seize this power, become the source of my new power. His mana cores react erratically, he bleeds from one eye and he does not stop. Ambition in this story always sends the bill to the body. The backlash shakes the central tower like an earthquake. The white-bearded elder shouts that he'll do whatever he can to stop it while the tower scrambles to evacuate. Then Jaime reappears with his hair and height briefly changed and Siegfried's head snaps around. That's the man I saw in Lord Jaime's memory before, Diablo Volpir. He talks himself out of it in the very next panel. Wait a minute. No, it's not. That's the closest anyone comes to saying it in public across 100 episodes, and it comes from the one man who already knows because Jaime told him first. The secret survives on a technicality he built himself. The royal side of the truth surfaces too in a secret journal titled Records of Accounts with a Demon. The first king of the Freedmoor dynasty was afraid, and he took the creature's offer anyway. He founded the kingdom of Seldom with it, then sealed the thing inside the crown of omniscience for his descendants. The national treasure was a prison the entire time. Days later a private council thanks him for it and he shrugs the whole thing off. I only made him pay for attacking me first. Then he states the plan plainly. 5 years of isolation aiming at rank 9. Only then I'll finally be able to start something. Elsewhere Lars Arithmetic prays at Peyro's grand temple for both of the children while talk of war spreads. And then the page does the boldest thing in this entire section. It draws Zenith. The halo, the white and navy robe, the god who watched him get chained in the first minute of this video. The voice on that panel doesn't belong to the god, it belongs to Jaime. Rest assured, Zenith, you'll be the first god I slay with my own hands. That's half an answer to the question we've carried for 3 hours. He can't kill 12 yet. He can name the first one out loud with a deadline attached. I will then strike down each and every one of you vile bastards. Then a card drops across the page. 5 years pass since then. We're skipping half of the special episode because it's a gag about a height potion. The other half closes a thread from episode 35. Benna walks into Valkyrie Woods and the guards call her Her Highness. The queen who runs to her calls her my daughter. Benna is the missing Valkyrie princess, brought home by a green-haired elf named Braha of Sepid Forest. And her flashback is uglier than anyone assumed. She wasn't taken in as a lost child. I was kidnapped by that bastard, Gab. She hides that part from her own mother on purpose. Then Jaime drops his disguise in front of the clan and leaves them a warning. There will come a time to pick up your arms once again. Episode 100 opens on a name card. Jaime Welton, Archmage, 15 years of age. Black has been in deep sleep for 5 years since the moment he made that light. The 9-year-old who woke from a recurring dream in episode 1 is now 15. He trains with the House Knights before breakfast like nothing about him changed. Then he spars with his father, and this is the shot the whole video has been building toward. He opens with the dispersion form of modified Thousand Seas. He follows with Welton style number 7, Thunderous Slash. The blades collide in a teal blast. 5 years of monstrous growth and he still cannot land a single hit. Argano tells him he might manage it in about 5 more years. Read that correctly. The story isn't shrinking him, it's showing you the ceiling the same way Darius did in that Undercity cage. His father is a swordmaster and only Grandmaster ranks higher, a level the page says no human has openly reached. The gods sit somewhere above even that. The gods sit somewhere above that. He says goodbye at breakfast, promises Sarah he'll show her the magical society, and warps out. In his office at the top of the central tower, his secretary Hera Valino brings him a formal request. The Kingdom of Harmonia wants aid, and it specifically wants a master-level mage. 5 years of civil war have gutted the place. A corrupt royal court on one side, rebels backed by the frontier on the other. The rebels have a swordmaster who crushed Harmonia's King's Knight Sir Kyril Owent without taking a hit. At the Elders' Council nobody else is free. The first elder is away, returning soon from his expulsion, which the page cheerfully never explains. So the job goes to the boy, and the chair he takes it from is the point. He's the third elder now. That's the seat that came open with the third elder's treachery weeks after he stood in that lab and promised them a storm. Rinmal grumbles about helping those scoundrels, then mentions the fee. Harmonia is offering its national treasure, the Orgal of Morning Star. The king's decree gives Jaime room to improvise, telling him to see the situation himself and serve Seldom's interests, so he runs the numbers, walking away. Help the court, and the court owes Seldom. Let the rebels win instead, and the new government owes Seldom. So basically, I can act like a jerk to them and they won't even retaliate. That's the last line of 100 episodes, delivered with a small cold smile and a dark mage aura bleeding through his hair. The child who cried at a warp terminal is now pricing a civil war for profit. Here's the channel's verdict on this block. He wore a crown that ate a dynasty and killed the thing living inside it. He walked out holding a piece of himself lost before recorded history. He named Zenith first with a date, and he still can't touch his own father with a sword. So which is it? Is he standing near the top, or is the top far higher than he thinks? 5 years bought him a training plan and one name on a list. 12 gods are still up there, still not looking down, and the storm he promised is already moving. So here's the channel's verdict on the whole run. The best thing this story does is pay its own title on the page. Chapter 34 does the arithmetic in front of you. 65,966 years carved on a memorial stone plus Ganon's 700. That's 66,666. Most series would leave a number like that as decoration. This one hands you the receipt, and it hands it to you through a dead man's diary. Then Chapter 89 shows the ceiling from the inside, from his eyes, which is the reason the number lands as a wound instead of a title card. Where it leans too hard is the court politics around the ordination. Those episodes exist to arrange furniture for later, and some threads die open on purpose. The God Killer, the third artifact he forged himself, is never found. The professor behind Trinity is never named. Mr. Silver just stops existing. So the 3-hour question gets half an answer. He is not strong enough to kill a god yet, and nobody up there has noticed he is coming. That second half is the whole hand he is holding. He built it from a crib, from zero, inside a body that still loses a spar to his own father. That's what I'd tell anyone deciding whether to read it. It is a revenge story where the revenge has not started. 100 episodes bought him a name on a list and a 5-year plan. The story runs well past this point, and the finale says its next target out loud. 12 names were on that list. Zenith is only the first. Which one do you think falls next? Tell me in the comments the same way I asked you back at the start. The gods told him they would look forward to that day, so do I. Subscribe for a new manhwa recap every few days. Original story by H. Wabong, art by Pasa. Please support the official release.